Well. Here we are. This is normally the time when I would not knock my cord out of my headphones. This is normally the time where I would say, "It's Friday. We made it. We made it through another week, and now we're doing a happy hour." Happy hour is when we watch a woke training and drink beer. But I've decided that I deserve a little bit of a break. I was right up until about half an hour ago. We were gonna do happy hour like normal, and we were gonna watch a disability like a queer disabled presentation, because I've been promising we're gonna do disability studies at some point. And so I found one. I was like, I had a queer crip channel, because disability studies, critical disability theory is called crip theory. They're called anyway. We're gonna do that. And then I was like, you know what? Nah. I'm not in the mood today. I'm not in the mood, because it's one of those things where when you accidentally discover a video clip of radical revolutionary socialists laying out exactly and precisely how they are going to overthrow the government. Stepmom Dad, well, on the same day you did your stream about the Haymarket books, post a video with the race Marxists have co-opted No shit, did she? Did Deb post a video? Okay. Are you serious, Prometheus? Hi, Deb. Hi. We know you watch all my content, Deb. We know you try to crib my ideas, Deb, because you have nothing of your own, Deb. This is why I kicked your ass out of my community when you tried to steal from me, Deb. We know you can't come up with anything on your own, Deb. We're going to keep a very close eye on your YouTube channel, Deb, to find out how many other of my things and my content that you're stealing and then copying exactly what I say and proclaiming it as your own, like you came up with the idea, when what we were really doing is watching my content and then cribbing it for your audience, crossing your fingers that no one notices, because you keep lying to your audience about me and have for years to try to prevent them from watching me, because you crib all your ideas from me because you have nothing original to add on your own. So really, the purpose of today's stream, if people haven't caught on, I need to work out some feelings. I need to work out many feelings. And apparently, one of those feelings that I'm going to be working out is with stepmom Deb Filman. Now, I wasn't even planning on looking at anything else on Deb's YouTube channel, but since Prometheus has brought it up, Deb, and if you don't know who Deb is, you're going to find out real quick. Did Deb seriously do this? Did Deb seriously do this? What was it? It would have been the other day. Which one was it, Prometheus? It was on her it was on her Twitter. Oh, it was on her Twitter, not on her YouTube channel. All right. We'll look into that in a minute. Oh, yes, Paula. Yeah. We're going to have some beer. Now, the real reason that I am working out some feelings, yes, today is Anti-Hero Day. I think that's a great way to put it, Gloria. Today is Anti-Hero Day. We will be having a beer vote. But before, we were distracted by the fact that stepmom Deb Filman is stealing my shit. Are you serious? Look, hang on. I need to look at Deb's Twitter. Hang on. I'm sorry. Prometheus has derailed the entire beginning of the show. We're looking at Deb's Twitter. And I'm going to put a banner at the bottom of my screen just to make sure I accidentally don't show the name of my sock account. Because if I show the name of my sock account, they're going to find it and they're going to block me. And then I'm going to have to create a new sock account. It's going to be a big pain in the ass. All right, let's look at Deb's fucking Twitter. I haven't had to do this all day. Haven't had to do it all day. And then Prometheus comes in and is like, Deb Filman stealing your shit. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, Deb sucking the cock of James Lindsay. Of course she is. Prometheus, you said this was on the 26th. Hang on. It was in her Twitter. At the time I took the screenshot, it only had 1 like. The 27th. Okay, the 27th. It is the first now. So we got to go back a little bit. Deb tweets a lot. Deb tweets more than me. Hang on. Oh, well, guys, if you are drinking, yes, well, there is going to be a new plague doctor. There's not a new plague doctor yet because I was doing other stuff. But there will be a new plague doctor. All right, guys, if you're just joining, we're having a little bit of a haphazard start to the stream because Prometheus has informed me that Deb Filman again was stealing my shit again. And so now I'm doing an impromptu investigation. This is going to be a drama day on my stream. I'm going to watch a full-form presentation of Deb Filman talking to James Lindsay. And, okay, here's the 27th. Okay, now let's go back and see. I should have been paying closer attention. Did I already go by it? Hang on. Deb complaining about something. Deb complaining. Prometheus, this was a video, you said? Deb complaining about something. Deb complaining some more. Deb complaining some more. This one. Huh. Well, there it is. Isn't that funny, Deb? Isn't that funny that you don't watch Haymarket Books, Deb, but I happen to be watching Haymarket Books, and then you happen to post the same video that I was streaming, probably while I was streaming it. Deb was watching me. Oh, no, she posted it right after. Deb basically posted this video almost exactly after I finished streaming this live because we stream sniped them live. This is not the first time Deb has done this to me. So Deb, you're welcome. They're trying to change the definition of it. Deb, why didn't you take the time to explain to your audience that in that video, they specifically explained that they're trying to change the definition of anti-Semitism? Did you understand that part, Deb? Did you understand where in that presentation they were specifically explaining that they're changing the definition of anti-Semitism? Why didn't you teach that to your audience, Deb? Deb, you are a good Jewish girl, okay? And we all know that when it's convenient for you to be a Jew, you are very, 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 very proud of being a Jew, Deb. So why didn't you, good Jewish girl, explain to your audience that they're changing the definition of anti-Semitism so it only applies to Jews who are being actively oppressed? Why didn't you say that, Deb? The race Marxists have now co-opted anti-Semitism victimology as their own. Deb, did you even watch the video that we were watching? Did you even take the time to understand what you were looking at? No. No, you didn't. We know, Deb. We know you have no idea what that video says because you don't speak their language. And that, guys, is part of the goddamn problem. That's part of the problem. And that's why we're taking a little break today, because we were going to continue on business as normal. We were going to watch a disability studies presentation, and I was going to drink some beer, and we were going to talk about it, and I wasn't going to talk about any of this, but I need to work out some feelings on the internet because I don't know what more I have to do to get people to take this seriously. I really don't. We accidentally found a video where at the very end of the video, radical revolutionary socialists who are highly, highly, highly organized laid out their plan for overthrowing the government and implementing a socialist utopia. They laid it out. They're going to organize through the unions. They're going to organize in the workplaces. They have cells in every organization on every college campus. We know this is true because we can go on Twitter and find people saying, who are these communists recruiting on college campuses? Because their flyers are everywhere. This specific group. We know this group has organized presences in over 30 US cities, and they're not all blue cities. And they are specifically saying, we are going to overthrow the federal government. They specifically said, we are going to raise a red flag of communism above the White House. They specifically said how they were going to do it. They are holding these events all over the country for it. They launched a political party to organize this on Monday. Like, they are not fucking around at all. And I can't get people to share it. I just don't know. I just don't know what else to do. I don't know. If you guys only knew how many people I sent this information to. Now, we already know that the typical kind of conservative grifters who have blocked me on Twitter for calling them conservative grifters because they're absolutely conservative grifters and they don't want people calling them out because they're pussies. The facts don't care about your feeling people are really the biggest pussies you've ever met in your life. But there are a ton of other people that I shared this with, people that have been following. P.S. Did you guys know Donald Trump Jr. is following me on Twitter? I didn't know, but apparently my community remembers that I told them Donald Trump Jr. was following me on Twitter at some point. I don't remember actually knowing that. Maybe it's just the weed. I don't know. Maybe but Donald Trump Jr. is following me on Twitter, and I sent this to him. I slid into this is the first time. I don't know how long he's been following me, but this is the first time I like with the bigger name people, I don't slide into their DMs over every little thing. I'm judicious AF. Like, I only slide into their DMs if it's actually like, bro, you need to share this. So I slid into Donald Trump Jr.'s DMs today and I said, can you please tell people about this, good sir? I slid into Megyn Kelly's DMs and told her because she follows me on Twitter. And I mean, I can't even tell you how many. Oh, yeah. I slid into Vivek's DMs. Vivek does follow me. Yeah. I slid into his DMs. I can't even tell you guys how many people I contacted about this today. I probably sent this to more people than I have ever sent anything. And I can't get people to share it. It's not that no one's sharing it. The who are the black twins? I don't know how to say their name. I feel so bad because they do actually share my stuff. How do I say their name? The black twins? Hodgett twins? I don't know how to say they don't know how to say my name either. It's okay. But they shared it to 2 million people. That was pretty great. And they've always been good. They've always been great about share the is that how you say it? The twins, the fabulous conservative twins, did share it out. And that was cool. Hodge. There we go. I got there eventually. Thank you, Hodge twins. I know it took me 17 tries to say your name correctly, but I apologize, but I do appreciate you. But the amount of people that I sent it to that didn't share it is mind-boggling to me. It really, really is. And it's like, these are the same people who whine and complain about the commies, the commies, the commies, the commies, the commies, the commies. all day, every day. These are people who have quite literally written books. Yes, Z Van Fleet shared it. Lily Tang Williams. Do you know who shared this? The Chinese women who have been through the Chinese Cultural Revolution were two of the first to share it. Lily Tang Williams and Z Van Fleet, they both shared it. Nope, they as soon as they saw it, Lily Tang Williams like put a whole. She was like, "Carlin, baby, baby, baby." I was like, "I know, Lily, I know." Isn't it funny that the two Chinese women who had been through the Chinese Cultural Revolution saw this and they were like, "Oh shit." But most conservative influencers, nah, nah. And it's like, and I knew that was going to happen. I knew it. And I won't say no one shared it. I mean, it has 61,000 views on Twitter, and it's all right, but like it's just depressing. It's depressing that I can literally just hand out video of here are extremely well organized radical revolutionary socialists, communists, Marxists, whatever. It all means the same basically. Here are extremely well organized radical revolutionary socialists saying to you exactly how they are going to take over the federal government. They're not mincing words. They're not even speaking in code. It is extraordinarily clear. And not only can I not get anyone to share it, but yeah, Prometheus, you're exactly right. Here is the replies from conservatives. They're lazy. They don't have jobs. They smell bad. They don't know what bathroom to use. They'll never do it. We have all the guns. There aren't enough of them to do it. You're being silly if you think this is real. They're all feds. Wah, 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 wah. And I'm like, I did my part, man. I did my part. And then a bunch of you last night, you sent in super chats to Tim Pool, which I didn't actually expect to happen, if I'm honest about it. I know we joked about that in the chat. But I didn't actually expect people to send in that many super chats to Tim Pool. But it was hilarious. And I appreciate that it was hilarious. And I appreciate everyone who did it because it really did make my day when I saw like Judy put together a whole collage on Twitter of like all the different super chats that were sent in about this. And I was like, holy shit, I really didn't expect it. But do you know what happened with that though? Now, I don't think that yeah, exactly. He didn't read them, of course. And I don't think anyone actually expected him to. But what was really telling about it was that I heard from not one, not two, but three people that sent in super chats on Tim's show about me and about this, that not only did Tim not read them, they deleted the super chats. They deleted the super chats almost immediately upon sending them in. Exactly. Alex was one of the people that had his super chat deleted. It looked like the mods were deleting them before they timed out. I heard from 3 different people. Carlin, I tried to send in a super chat, but Tim deleted it. I was like, what the fuck? Bot said they deleted every chat I sent that said communist. Why are Tim Pool's moderators, or possibly Tim himself, deleting super chats that are about this? I mean, I guess Tim didn't know about. I mean, some of the super chats just say Carlin was right, but like, why is that so offensive that they're if you're sending in a $2 or a $3 super chat, a 2 or $3 super chat, like, that's gonna be in a super chat for, like, about a couple of minutes. It's gonna scroll right by on the screen. No one's even gonna remember it. It's gonna sit at the top of the thing for, like, a couple of minutes. Why is it so important that that be deleted? Again, I didn't expect any of that to happen. I mean, you guys really did. It was like a birthday present, except it's not my 29th birthday again, but I was like, people have been, like, haranguing me to, like, try to go on one of those shows, and I keep saying, "No, no, 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 no." And then I know Cassandra wants me on it because she's told me that, like, on multiple occasions, and every time I'm like, "Eh." And then the last time Cassandra told me she wanted me on it, she said, "You can come and meet my monkeys," and that was like I was like, I definitely wanna do that." But, like, for real, like, and I like her, and I like what she's doing, and so there's no problem with me and her, and so for, like, a brief moment, I was actually thinking about it. I was actually like, do I actually wanna try to make this happen? Because I have not wanted to, like, basically the entire time I've been hearing from my audience that they want me to do this, and I'm like, and I was still, like, hemming and hawing about it, but I gotta tell you guys, after last night, when I heard that super chats were being deleted because they had my name in them, for no that were not inappropriate, that weren't swearing or anything, that were just you guys fucking around, why on earth would I wanna go on that show? I'm obviously not wanted there. And that makes me depressed too because again, it's like I don't wanna go where I'm not wanted. I don't wanna talk to people where I'm not wanted. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not gonna listen, man, I'm not gonna tell you guys what to do. I'm really not. Like, I don't because I already know what's gonna happen is, like, people are gonna see, like, I'm not gonna tell you guys what to do. If you wanna do something, then I'm not, like, but I just don't know what it accomplishes when I don't know what it accomplishes. I don't know what it accomplishes. So it's depressing, I think. It's depressing. It's like, yeah, a bunch of people liked this and retweeted it and shared it out and you hope at some point like some people actually start to listen, but I also like with some of the people who are sharing it out, they said to me like I would get DMs back from people saying, "Carlin, we're totally F. We've already lost the country." And I would say, "I know, bro. I know." But the reason that we are completely and totally effed is because the conservative right and the influencers are so awful. They're just so awful. And they don't take any of this seriously. And guys, I'll be the first to tell you that you don't get rich covering the Marxist revolution, okay? You don't get rich covering the Marxist revolution. Well, this is the other thing, like, why I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Yeah, why don't all 20 like, why don't 20 of you send in super chats about me at the exact same time?" It's I like, I don't wanna look like I'm causing stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, last night, I really didn't realize that people were gonna send in those super chats, and so, like, I mean, I couldn't say anything about it, but I was like in my head, I mean, and I think this was evidenced by the fact that Tim or whoever was running Tim's chat deleted the fucking super chats. In my head, I'm going, "This looks like I coordinated the entire thing, and then I'm just trying to get it." And here's what's gonna be going through Tim's head, I bet you. "Oh, she's such a grifter. Blah, 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 blah. She coordinated all this. Blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "I didn't even know this was happening, bro." And so then if it happens again, it's like, I don't know how that looks. And I hate so much that these are the conversations that have to go through my head because I'm literally just over here watching socialism and teaching you guys about this, and we're doing this together, and I don't like, in my head, I have to go, like, we can't actually push this out there in the way like, so what that we have a video clip of radical revolutionary socialists describing explicitly how they're going to overthrow the federal government. We have to think about brand, darling, and we have to think about how the influencers might interpret this and how it might make the influencers feel, when in my head, I don't give a flying fuck how they feel. I don't give a flying fuck. Oh, he knows about it. Has he shared it? No. So it's depressing, I guess. And I try to look on the good side. I try to say, like, I also have gotten just like incredible feedback of people saying, Carlin, this is important. Thank you for doing this. Like, I've gotten wonderful messages from people on that. And, obviously I have like, people here, people on the Substack, like, are super engaged with this stuff and they appreciate it. And that's the good part, is that, someone said to me today, they were like, Carlin, you can only like the country's already lost and most people don't care, and you can only help the people that you can help, and that's all you can really do. And I'm kind of like, I understand that's true. It just really, really, really boggles my mind how many people build brands in which they express that they care about this stuff. And then the minute, like, these are people who have been complaining about the treatment of the January 6 people for over 3 years. And then we have evidence of an actual insurrection. This is an actual insurrection. January 6th was not an insurrection. January 6th was a LARP. I was there. I was on the Capitol grounds that day. I didn't go in the building. I even got my FBI interview. Like, January 6th was a LARP. This is not a LARP. These people have been organizing this for decades. This specific group has been around since 1992. This specific group is an international organization that has organizations not just in the US, in Canada. By the way, in Canada, this group, the part of it in Canada, also announced the formation of a revolutionary communist party. So there's not just a new revolutionary communist party in the United States, there's also a new revolutionary communist party in Canada, and it's the same organization. And they announced that party in Canada a couple days after they announced the party here. This is a highly coordinated international organization that has millions of dollars in the bank, that is entirely self-funded. This is not George Soros. This is not the WEF. This is entirely self-funded. How do I know that? Because they built that into the organization when they launched it. I looked it up. It was very important to the founders of this organization. It's called the International Marxist Tendency. They've kind of changed names. They've bounced around a little bit, but the International Marxist Tendency is what's on their website. They specifically needed it to be an entirely self-funded thing by donations from comrades all over the world in order to keep it politically pure. That was important to them. I bet you the CCP doesn't send them money. Remember, these people don't think the CCP is communist. So I bet they don't. Socialists are much more ideologically pure than anyone on the right. The right, people on the right, conservatives on the right, will bitch and complain about the gays in public while they're getting fucked in the ass in private. These people don't do that. These people are in public who they are in private, and I know because I've been to their goddamn events. It's exactly the same. These people live and breathe this stuff. It is their identity. It is who they are. And so I don't think they're taking money from the CCP because they don't think the CCP is communist. I believe them when they say they're entirely self-funded. They're funded through events, they're funded through merchandise sales, they're funded through book sales. This is all on their website, and they're funded by donations. And they've been around for a long ass time. And it doesn't look like they're extravagant at all because I've looked at some videos of their older events and they're like very, very, very kind of like budget. They're not being extravagant. Even if you look at their videos, they're nicely produced, but they're not hard to make. They're something that anyone can make. They're doing all this themselves. They have organized presences in 30 US cities. They are on every college campus, littering them with flyers. They're flat out telling us they have people in every union. Every union. They're flat out telling us that they're going to use workplaces to organize. They're saying what they're doing. And no one will listen. Or I shouldn't say no one because some people are. Very few people are listening. And instead, what I'm getting from conservatives is they're lazy. They don't have jobs. They smell bad. They don't know what bathroom to use. They're mentally ill. We have all the guns. You want me to think that they have guns? They don't have guns. They hate guns. Well, they don't even know what their name is. They don't know what their gender is. They're all gay. They're all ugly. Like, honest to God. I'm like, bro, there aren't enough of them. They aren't really doing this. They're all feds. It's all a lot. Like, I don't even know how to react to that anymore. I really don't. None of these people actually take the time to listen to the left. None of these people know how far along the left is. And they dismiss them as mentally ill. They say there's not enough of them. They say this, they say that. Of course, every time conservatives are saying this stuff, they're projecting their own bullshit onto the left as a way to work out the fact that they're not doing anything. And you can't get Francisco on Twitter, that's not the organization. And you can't get the influencers to talk about it because either it's too overwhelming to them, they don't understand it, they don't take it seriously. It's not a pink-haired college girl yelling in someone's face and therefore it isn't real. We don't see it. It's not real. We're winning. We're winning. We're winning, bro. But the information is out there for people who want it, I guess, and that's all I can really do, and that's all you can really do, and I do appreciate everyone that spent a bunch of time today trying to share this out. I appreciate everyone who was tagging people on Twitter. I appreciate everyone who tried, and, sometimes, like, saying that we did what we could do and we can't do anymore, and moving on to the next is really it's all we can do, right? It's all we can do. So that's where I'm at right now, and, we'll see if anything else comes of this. I tend to doubt it, but I've done my part to share it out, and, when this happens, and I do think it is a matter of when and not a matter of if, I absolutely think it's going to happen. I'll get to say my "I told you so's," but my "I told you so's" won't feel good because I really wish people had listened now instead of I don't know, instead of doing whatever they do. But I can't control any of that. You can't control any of that. They're the ones that are going to have to look themselves in the mirror and realize that when these people win, it will be entirely their fault. And no one will be able to send in $2 super chats when I'm right because there won't be capitalism anymore. Anyway, so because I was a little depressed about this and I was, just like not in the mood, I thought we would do a Nitwits episode. Because one of the things that we did decide yesterday is that I no longer consider these people to be my primary enemy. I mean, if I'm honest about it, like, I try to have a pretty detached perspective about the left in general, but I no longer consider these people to be my primary enemy because these people are very clear about what they're doing. These people are not hiding what they're doing. They're saying what they think out in the open, and they're going about their business and they're focusing on their values. And I can't fault them for that. Like that's really what everyone should do. No matter what anyone says about you, no matter what anyone does, you should focus on your values and creating what you want in the world. And that's what they're doing. I can't fault them for that. They deserve to win. My enemy is now the conservative fucking influencers who are lying to their audiences and hiding the truth from them. That's who I'm most angry at. I'm not angry at the left. The left has different values than me. The left is going after their values. I can't be angry at them for that. I'm angry at conservative influencers for lying to their audience, for dismissing this information, for not bothering to look at it, for getting so caught up in their goddamn feelings that they can't do anything fucking productive, for positioning themselves as experts on things when in fact they're just failed entertainers who want to build a brand to make money on the internet. These people are going to win because conservatives are going to allow them to win. And the reason conservatives are going to allow them to win is because the people leading the so-called conservative right are grifters and entertainers who just want to make money and build a brand. So I'm going to direct my hatred and I'm going to direct my animosity at them because it is their fault that we are in this problem. If they reported actual news to their audience, we would be in a very different position right now. If they showed video like this to their audience, we would be in a very different position right now. But no. Instead, what they'll do is they'll block anyone who suggests they look at this because this is how I get blocked on Twitter now, guys. Anytime I've gotten blocked by a conservative influencer on Twitter lately, it's literally for putting video like this in their replies and making them confront it. That's the truth. So they don't want to deal with it. They're lying to their audiences. So as far as I'm concerned, it's their fucking fault. So we're going to work out some feelings today. And I'm going to be doing episodes like this a little bit more often. Because if they want to be assholes, then I'll just expose them for the fucking shills that they are. And maybe not that many people will care. Maybe only a couple hundred people will care that they're paid shills. Maybe only a few hundred people will care that they lie to their audiences. Maybe only the people. I mean, it hasn't it has crossed my mind that really the only people who will understand how shitty conservative influencers are people who watch my content regularly. And here's what I found. People who watch my content regularly, you guys have a very high standard for the type of information that you will accept. You've gotten used to things going really in depth. You've gotten used to things being really nuanced. And so when you start to compare my content to someone like Deb Filman, the difference is stark. So maybe only a few hundred people will care, but at least I will be working out my feelings. And that's important because I have to stay sane too. So what we're going to do today is we're going to watch this stream from 2 months ago that is titled Stop Hiring College Graduates with James Lindsay. And this is a conversation that Deb Filman, who steals my content, had with James Lindsay about how the colleges are just ruining people. If the title of this stream alarmed you, good. You should be alarmed, especially if you're one of the millions of parents who thinks the purpose of K-12 education is to prepare your child to attend a good college because you also believe a college degree is essential to getting hired at a so-called good job. Dr. James Lindsay joins me to talk about what's going on in America's institutions of higher learning and why he's advising employers to stop hiring college graduates. So we're going to watch this and we're going to see what the good conservative influencers are talking about. We're going to see what most people in the anti-woke space are consuming. This will be the first time that I have watched an interview with James Lindsay in 3 years. I watched actually no, I guess that other one was an interview. I'm sorry. I was thinking that other podcast I watched with him was more of a monologue, but it really wasn't. It was an interview. So this will be the second time I've watched a long form interview with James Lindsay in 3 years. This is a relatively recent thing, so it should be a good indicator of where James is right now. Yes, we're all sure that this will be very informative and definitely will tell us lots of things we don't know. So that's what we're doing on the show today, guys. Now, before we get into that, I know that I've given a really optimistic and rousing welcome. But just a quick reminder to head over to my Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's fine too. If you want to support the work I'm doing, sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I really do appreciate it. You guys keep me in beer money so I can do things like happy hours on Fridays. I've got some great beer I'm going to be showing you in a minute. You can also head over to the Unwoke Art Store where for a couple more hours, because I haven't updated it yet, you can still get the 4 Goals of the Woke Left for 25% off. I know it said at the end, it ended at the end of February. The discount is still good though, and it's going to go away at midnight tonight. I just haven't updated it yet because I've been doing other things today. I also will be updating the February Plague Doctor design to a new Plague Doctor design, but if you missed out on the February one, you can still get it until I get around to updating it, which might be this evening. It might be tomorrow because I've had other stuff going on. So I apologize for people who are waiting for the new Plague Doctor, but sometimes life gets in the way and that's just the way it goes. All purchases from the Unwoke Art Store do go to support the work I'm doing, and I really appreciate it. Let's get to the beer, shall we? Can we talk about beer? I have 4 beers because it is happy hour, and so I've got 4 beers here. I'm not going to drink all of them. I might drink a little more today than I usually drink. And it is a tradition on happy hour that I tell you guys about the beer, and then you guys get to vote on which beer I drink first. So our first beer, I don't think I've had this one. This is from one of my old standbys, Branch Blade Brewing Company, and they're in New Hampshire, I believe. Keene, New Hampshire. Shout out Branch Blade. This is a Fluffernutter sour, so it has some peanut butter in it, but it is a double grape jelly Fluffernutter sour. And so that's going to be our first option. So that's going to have some grape. That's going to have some peanut butter. That's going to have some salty. That's going to have some sweet. That's going to have some delightful beer. That is our first option. Option number 2 is a little woke. It even has Bernie Sanders on it. It is a Bernie Sanders beer. Is this brewery in Vermont? I bet they're in Vermont. Yup. Winooski, Vermont. This beer is from Bernie Sanders country, and it's called, this is from 4 Quarters Brewing. It is called Smitten Mittens Maple S'mores Stout. So this is a milk stout with milk, sugar, maple syrup, chocolate chips, cocoa, graham crackers, and marshmallow. That's going to be our s'mores stout. That is option number 2. Option number 3, I've had this one before, but I don't remember it. But I know I've had it before. This is an imperial. It is called Belly of the Beast. It is from Rockingham Brewing Company in Derry, New Hampshire. And this, my friends, is an imperial bacon stout. Yes, they put bacon in beer. And our last one is probably the one I'm most excited about. If I had to make a recommendation, I want to try this beer. I'm going to try this beer at some point, but I would really like to try this beer, and I think I've earned it. A tiramisu stout. This beer combines 2 of my favorite things in the world, tiramisu and stout. And it is a pastry stout with lactose and natural flavor. And that's all it says. Let me see if it has more information on the back. This indulgent and flavorful stout boasts layers of creamy vanilla, rich dark chocolate, and a hint of invigorating coffee. Indulge in the full richness of tiramisu with no need for a fork. So, guys, I'm putting the poll in the chat. Of course, you can vote for any beer you want, and I will drink all of them eventually, but not on stream today, probably. We've got our Fluffernutter Stout. We have our S'mores Stout with Bernie. We have our Bacon Stout, or we have our Tiramisu Stout. It is a stout kind of day on the channel because stouts are my favorite beer, so I'm going to drink what I want. And while you guys are voting for that, let me get the sound set up. Thank you guys for allowing me to work out my feelings for like the first 45 minutes of this here stream. I really do appreciate it. I don't go to therapy. I do this. I do this. All right, let's see. Oh, gosh. I think we have a clear winner. And that clear winner is you guys granted me my wish. I get my tiramisu stout. Let's just open it. Let's open it. I hope it's good. I hope they didn't fuck up this beer. I hope they didn't. Like, there's nothing more disappointing than when you're really looking forward to a beer and you find out they screwed it up and you're like, no. Got a good head, though. All right, everyone. Cheers. Happy Friday. We made it through another week. If you're drinking something fun, let us know in the chat. I definitely smell the coffee. I definitely smell that. I'm going to let that settle for a minute. Let's get this party started, guys. We are watching Deb Filman talk to James Lindsay, and we're going to see what they both have to say. Now, per usual, I will be calling balls and strikes, okay? I don't have to like people to say that they're right. So I'm not just going to be a bitch to be a bitch. If Deb says something I agree with, I will say that Deb said something I agree with. If James Lindsay said something that is correct, we will applaud him for saying something that is correct. We're not going to be bitchy just to be bitchy. But if Deb Filman doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about, then I'm going to say that. If James Lindsay is getting basic shit wrong or lying to the audience, I'm going to say that. We call balls and strikes. You don't need to be best friends. The problem is not a personality conflict. The problem is there are some people who are telling the truth, and there are some people who are not, and there are some people who are remaining willfully ignorant because they're evil, ego-driven, maniacal cunts, Deb. And there are some people who are lying to their audience because they don't want to lose them, James. And we're going to talk about it. All right, let's get this party started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Filman. At The Reason We Learn, we aspire to be part of the solution. The purpose of this show is to take a good honest, potentially painful look at the way kids are being educated. We know we can do better, and this is where we'll talk about how. Let's learn something.
Let's learn something.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Filman. If this is your first time at the channel, I hope you will consider subscribing to get notified when I make new content. If you're interested in our nation's education crisis, this is the place to be. I bring people here to talk to us about what's going on in education, how to understand it, how to make sense of it, and then what you can do about it for your own kids. Tonight's show is no exception. I'm very excited. I'm having James Lindsay here. He's been here before, but he's here this evening to talk to us about college. If you follow him on X, you've probably seen him going hard about not hiring college graduates. And so I've invited him here to talk to us about why that is. Before I bring him on, I'd like to make a plug for my new community, which is at Woke Screen. I'm going to show it to you. This is what it looks like.
Okay.
Woke Screen.
Do you know what Deb did? Do you know what Deb did that was the stupidest thing that Deb has ever done in her life? Deb put her online community in the hands of a raving narcissist. Deb had better pray that she never pisses off Queen Queerin, who runs this website on his personal server, the way that I did when I told him no and he didn't want to hear it. Because if Deb and Kieran ever have a falling out of any sort, I promise you Deb's community is going away in a snap and he's not going to give two fucks and there's nothing that she can do about it. Like, it is one of the stupidest things that I've ever seen in my life that Deb Filman put her entire online community in like the literal hands of a narcissist who has no ethicals, no ethics, no principles, will do anything to anyone who pisses him off for revenge. But good luck to you, Deb. Deb used to have a Substack. A Substack is a far more reputable thing to do. Deb used to have a Locals, also not perfect, but far more reputable than putting your entire community on some British asshole's random server when he doesn't even have a real job, but he has a server that Deb can use and he can make websites look okay. So stupid, guys. If you are ever going to build an online community, like, you build it on a reputable platform, because if you put it in the hands of a crazy person, it can go away in a second and there is nothing you can do about it. So stupid, so dumb, but whatever, she'll find out.
.com/The Reason We Learn. You can join, become a member. This gives you access to custom and private content, as well as consulting options, tutoring discounts, private live shows, calls, etc., and merchandise with discounts. So I hope you will consider giving it a look. So without further ado, let us welcome Dr. James Lindsay. Hello.
Hey.
I am so glad you're here.
Oh,
Thank
God.
you for coming.
I hate James's voice. I hate it. I hate it. It's like I'm having a visceral reaction.
This is a topic sort of near and dear to me. I've been saying for a while, we need to do something about college, but I've noticed, I'm going to just quickly scroll through your latest. I've been sort of bookmarking your tweets. Sorry, what do we call them now if they're not tweets? I mean, I don't know.
He said that the word is posts, but
posts. Okay, whatever they are.
Tweets.
All right. Stop hiring college graduates. Stop hiring college graduates. Stop hiring. I mean, on and on and on. Right. I've bookmarked these, so that's why.
Yeah.
Deb is also a terrorist for not using dark mode on Twitter. Like, who does that? I mean, for real.
Many in a row.
There they're that way if you go on there too sometimes.
Yeah. And so there's all that. And then, of course, we had this lovely hearing with Billy Stefanik. We don't need to play that. I
can't even see that without saying stop hiring college graduates. Like, it's reflexive at this point.
Right. And it's painful. But those of you who haven't watched it, I strongly encourage you to do so. But what does that actually mean? You know, you get a lot of flack on X for being just straight to the point
and saying things that
people say that's so extreme and incendiary and provocative. But I read it as, what's the point in beating around the bush? Get to the point. So tell us what you mean in your words.
Well, I mean, stop hiring college graduates. I don't think that there's any particularly challenging words in that sentence.
No.
So there's a lot that
Is Deb flirting with James? Is she? Now listen, man, I'm a fan of the of flirting with people for no good reason, and that's fine. That's fine. Like, if she's flirting with James, that's fine. But is she? I'm not judging Deb, except that you are part of a cancel horde who has judged me exponentially for flirting with people for the sake of doing it. So it seems a little bit odd if you are in fact flirting with him, Deb. Like, are you the only one who's allowed to flirt with people, Deb? Is that how this works?
should say to preface that, but I'll say what I mean by it, and then we can come back to the prefacing, which is literally the opposite of what a preface is. But we've got to change the incentive structure around college. College, not only is it not going to reform itself, it's not, in my opinion, capable of reforming itself. Even if state legislatures, in the cases of state schools, lean on colleges and universities, they threaten funding, they try to bring in regents to do whatever. Even then, they still can't hardly do anything. And the universities will literally turn and say, well, to the states and say things like, well, you only represent 11% of our budget. We don't really need you. And so they've gone completely rogue. I had a conversation, believe it or not, this is in 2018. That's how long ago it was. I was at Brett Weinstein's house with him and his wife, and Peter Boghossian was there, and a handful of others. I think Mike Nana and Helen Pluckrose were with us. I'm trying to remember who all was there. And Brett, if you know Brett, it's a very Brett thing, the way he kind of organizes and communicates information. But he said, what we have to do is we have to figure out, he said the universities are sick. We had just told him about the grievance studies affair earlier that day. It's very obvious they have some kind of disease. The question is it the flu? Is it a cancer? If it's a cancer, has it gone metastatic?
Anyone who has worked in higher education for any bit of time knows that higher education cannot be reformed. I know that Chris Rufo is on Twitter saying that Harvard is returning to the center. No, Harvard is not returning to the center. Harvard is never returning to the center. Harvard might have had a little bit of a bobble, but unless you literally fire every single faculty member at Harvard, Harvard is not returning to the center. I don't care who their provost is. Harvard is not returning to the center. That is not going to happen. P.S. Even if you did fire every single faculty member at Harvard, you have no one to replace them with, because 90% of people teaching in colleges and universities today and have the credentials to teach in college and universities today are completely fucking leftist. So it doesn't matter what you do. College ain't being reformed. I worked in higher education for 10 years. I was on the administrative side. I worked in admissions. I worked in development. I worked in marketing. I was an adjunct professor for a while. I have worked on all sides of this. I have been a consultant for colleges. I consulted with college leadership teams for a bunch of years. Like, you are not going to fix higher education. And if Brett Weinstein and Peter Boghossian and Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay were sitting around a table pontificating about the problems in higher education, and they did not fundamentally realize that you are not fixing higher education, then they are not as smart as they think they are, which is typical of faculty. It is very typical of faculty and institutions to think they know everything about everything when in fact they know nothing, because most faculty and most institutions have never been in the real world in their lives. And I don't care if the University of Florida fired their entire DEI staff. You want to know why, Paula? Because most of them are going to be rehired in another role within the University of Florida system. I'm going to say that again. The big news about the University of Florida firing all of their DEI staff, if you read the press release about it, they literally said that they were going to hire those people into other areas in the university. They're just going to change the names of things, or they're going to put them in different roles in which they will inevitably implement DEI because that's the way it worked. They just won't call the position DEI, but they're still going to end up doing DEI. So anyway, my point is this. Any college professors who have some notion that the college and university system is a fixable thing do not understand the college and university system. And I say that, again, as someone who spent more than a couple years literally consulting with university cabinets and college presidents and boards of trustees all over the flipping country.
Or is it rabies? And his point was, well, if it's the flu, you're going to get over it. It's going to go away. But you're going to be sick for a while. Most likely that's the course. If it's cancer, you've got to do certain kinds of treatments depending on how far along in the stages it is. If it's metastatic, you have another question on your hands. But if it's rabies, he said, and this was as close to I can remember his exact words from a little over 5 years ago. It was something like, if your dog has rabies, you love your dog, but it ain't your dog anymore. And it's a danger to itself and everybody else. And so if the university has rabies, which none of us were willing to accept, except
the universities
Peter
have rabies.
flirted with the idea. If the university has rabies, it's not the university anymore. It is something completely different.
That's exactly right. They are indoctrination centers into a cult. Jenny's getting inky with it. Thank you for the super chat. Firing Claudine Gray did what exactly? Oh, they actually firing Claudine Gray as the president of Harvard put Claudine Gray back into a teaching position. The reason that Claudine Gay, I think I said Gray, Gay, I know what her name is. It's right in front of me. The reason that Claudine Gay was hired as the president of Harvard is because she was a good fundraiser. I promise you. The vast majority of any college president's job is fundraising. The things that Claudine Gay was spending time doing at Harvard were fundraising. She was a fundraiser. That's what they do. Claudine Gay became ineffective as a fundraiser. That's why she was fired from or resigned, forced to resign, whatever. That's why she was kicked out of that position. Ineffectiveness as a fundraiser because she pissed off all the Jewish donors, and then there you go. But where did Claudine Gay go? She went right back into the classroom. As president of the university, Claudine Gay wasn't teaching students. She didn't have a captive audience. Now she's teaching students again. So and she's getting a $900,000 a year salary. So some might argue that firing Claudine Gay actually put her in a better position to be indoctrinating the future generation of students, which is entirely the problem to begin with. Congratulations, Harvard, changing the world. But no, guys, remember, Chris Rufo swears on Twitter that Harvard is moving back towards the center. Claudine Gay is still employed by Harvard with a very high six-figure salary, and now she's teaching students, but Harvard's moving back to the center because it hired a conservative provost? As I said today, I'm working out my feelings.
And what I identify it as now is Mao's revolutionary colleges, except that there's no Mao specifically. They have gone, they are Maoists, as a matter of fact. The people who took over education were in the 60s and 70s Maoists who went into education policy, went into university departments. They weren't shy about it. It's not like I'm dredging up some kind of accusation like Joseph McCarthy here. This was something they were proud of. And this is what our university.
I'm drudging up some accusation like Joseph McCarthy. Listen, man, I'll be the first to say that Joseph McCarthy made mistakes. Mistakes were made, all right? Probably because of the FBI, but mistakes were made. Fine. But Joseph McCarthy got a lot more right than he got wrong. And Joseph McCarthy was on the right track. And Joseph McCarthy was at least trying to do something. And if anyone watched the McCarthy hearing with me a while back, we watched a documentary about the McCarthy hearing, and I couldn't find the McCarthy hearing anywhere on the internet. It was on some random fucking channel that, like, it was a miracle that I actually found a video of that thing, because I looked for a long time. If you watch the McCarthy hearings with me, you know that Joseph McCarthy was basically like the Trump of his day. Like, there was a reason that they have basically scrubbed the McCarthy hearings off of the internet, because if you go back and watch that hearing, you realize how much Joseph McCarthy got effed over because he tried to get communists out of government, and he tried to expose them. And so, again, I will fully say that mistakes were made. And again, it was probably the CIA and the FBI that caused the mistakes to be made. But for James to say that Joseph McCarthy was just throwing out accusations, it gives me pause. If James hasn't yet come to the revelation that Joseph McCarthy was right, bro.
Universities have become, if they're not capable of reforming themselves, I'm not like a burn it to the ground guy, actually. I don't mean stop hiring college graduates forever. I don't even mean stop hiring all college graduates. We're dipping into the preface stuff. What I'm saying is if we don't change these incentives, the universities have no incentives whatsoever to change. They have
no
every
incentives
incentive
to change
keep
anyway,
doing more
James.
and more and more of what they're doing. The only thing that
the universities have no incentives to change anyway. The universities do not see their job as training future employees. Nothing the universities teach has any relevance to the workplace at all. So you're saying stop hire college graduates. So what? Did the fact that art history majors couldn't get a job prevent them from teaching art history? Did the fact that gender studies majors couldn't get a job prevent them from teaching gender studies? The universities don't see themselves as responsible for training the workforce. They never have.
You're not going to stop them. Their endowments are too big. If you stop donating, if you stop giving money or bequeathing money, that all helps, but you're not going to change
Freedom,
it. If the
I
alumni
appreciate
revolt,
it.
you're not going to change it. The level of financial damage that would have to hit them is so much bigger, because what
That's
they have,
true.
as long as there's this open tap of underwritten student loans,
He's right about that.
They have an infinite reservoir of money predicated on the idea that you have to go to college to get a good job. So everybody who wants to get a professional job is going to go to college, and that's just the next thing you do after high school anyway.
Correct.
And they're just going to just keep doing what they're doing. However, if there's all of a sudden a movement taking place in industry, if I say stop hiring college graduates, and here's some of that preface material, the best case scenario is fewer college graduates will be hired. There will be a general attitude about it, and the vetting that goes into hiring somebody who has a college degree will go up, rather than that just being kind of a check mark. Okay, we can hire. And the idea of opening up, there's a lot of professions that are gate kept by college degrees that could be opened up to people who don't have college degrees. The college degree isn't a guarantor of
I'm sorry, that's just not true. Like there are professions in which college degrees are necessary. Do you want an engineer who doesn't have a college degree? Do you want a doctor that doesn't have a college degree? Like, there are some professions where that's not going to work, and the professions where I mean, James is correct that there are professions in which you absolutely do not need a college degree at all. But yeah, I mean, it's like some of them you just can't help it. It's like you need to get to a certain level of math, you need to get to a certain level of science, like lawyers, physicists, medic. Like, I mean, how are you going to fix that? Prometheus has you have a PhD in engineering, bro. Good for you. Jesus Christ. That's a lot of math.
Capability or even being a good employee. And so the goal is to change all those incentives, because if going to college is no longer your guaranteed pathway to a good job, some kids who are going to college now don't want to put up with the hassle. They don't think it's worth it. They won't go. some parents will feel more confident in directing them into other very successful and even professional career paths if those things start to open up, as people shy away from hiring college graduates, as kind of this sleepwalking off the cliff that we're doing right now, sleepwalking into a cultural revolution that we're doing right now. And kind of most importantly, or most impactfully, that will impact, by the way, their financial bottom line in a way that the state can't do, that donations can't.
Did James just say we're sleepwalking our way into a cultural revolution? That's ironic, James. I agree with you that the people that you work with, James, are sleepwalking their way into a cultural revolution. And then you block a group of people on Twitter, because you didn't just block me, James. How many members of my community have you blocked who are actively fighting back against it? And the only people who are talking about the real fucking activists by name that are driving the cultural revolution. So you're one to talk about sleepwalking your way into a cultural revolution, bro, when you are actively working against some of the people who are trying to fucking stop it.
Touch. Dropping 20% enrollment would really, because that's their tuition money, that would really kick them in the balls.
James Lindsay's going to save everyone, though, guys. He's going to save us all.
Even better, if you actually read occasionally, I add this.
I should go back to corporate
students who are
training.
being ripped off by the schools, who are no longer able to be hired because they went to somewhere like Harvard that has a toxic brand now. People even who have Harvard degrees from 15 years ago.
I almost just spit. Did James Lindsay literally just say that Harvard graduates can't find a job because Harvard has a toxic brand? Does anyone here believe that in normal society, where people don't follow the news all day, every day, does anyone watching this actually believe that Harvard graduates cannot find a job and that the Harvard brand is toxic? James, how many applicants did Harvard have last year? How many applicants is Harvard going to have this year? What percent of those applicants do they actually admit to Harvard? Oh, wait, I'll tell you, around 10%. Harvard graduates can find a job, James. Yale graduates can find a job. Columbia graduates can find a job. Princeton graduates can find a job. The notion that Harvard graduates can't find a job because the brand is toxic is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. Most people don't know about any of this. Most people don't care that the president of Harvard was fired. Most people don't even know what that woman's name is.
Ago, who now have a toxic brand attached to them because of the failure in a kind of skewed sense of fiduciary duty of Harvard to protect its own brand. Those people need pathways to action, to sue.
James, do you really think that Harvard alumni are going to stop hiring Harvard graduates? Do you really think that Harvard alumni are going to tank the value of their own degrees by not hiring Harvard graduates? You think these Harvard alumni that are in all the big organizations are just going to say, well, my alma mater sucks now? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, I'm sorry. 6% of students. Harvard accepts 6% of students. Thank you, everyday therapist.
For the loss of value. They went to Harvard assuming that Harvard is going to give them a repository of value that they were investing in themselves. And that investment was actually, because of the actions of Harvard and its president and this woke stuff, they turned a AAA rated asset into a toxic asset. And there is somewhere floating in there.
What are they suing them for, James? Because the vast majority of Harvard students don't actually pay any tuition. So what exactly are they suing them for?
That hasn't been figured out legally yet, a pathway to private and class action that could crater a university like Harvard. I mean, you could be talking about a multi-billion-dollar class action against Harvard for what it's doing to its own brand reputation.
That's not going to happen.
That, by the way, will
That's
get their effing attention.
ridiculous.
That will start to
That's a
change the incentive
ridiculous
structures.
idea.
But where it all begins is by having a concerted movement toward hiring college graduates with a great deal more discernment, a great deal less reflexivity, a great deal less like that gatekeeping function where, well, if you don't have a degree, we can't even consider you. That's all got to go, because the colleges and universities have completely betrayed what they're supposed to be. They're doing something utterly different than what they are. Now, here's the preface material at the end. So it's a postface, I guess.
I mean, are they though? Are they doing something differently than what they're supposed to be doing? Because the universities have been doing this for decades. When did it change? When did it start? Especially at the Ivy Leagues. When did it actually change?
Reality is, like, if I were to push, okay, be really careful in how you choose which college graduates to hire, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't achieve anything. You say, stop hiring college graduates. Everybody's like, I'm still going to hire some. I'm going to hire the good ones. I'm going to see if they're conservative. I'm going to see if they got through this. I'm going to see if they're engineering. I'm going to see how many of these stupid diversity courses they had to take. I don't know what's going on at Harvard. I've already heard from people, not just in professional industry, but in the consulting class. I've heard direct stories from consulting agencies, like big ones like Booz Allen Hamilton, that they won't hire Harvard grads because the kids are too entitled and won't make copies when it's their turn to make copies and stuff like that. They're like, I don't make copies. I went to Harvard. And it's like,
I believe
bitch, we all went to Harvard. Make some copies.
I believe that. There are a lot of big consulting companies that, like, PricewaterhouseCoopers used to do this. I don't know if they still do, but I think a lot of the big consulting companies do this, where, like, when you, like, they go to college campuses and they recruit the best of the best, right? Because they have all these big names behind them. And then they bring those kids in and they make them do the most menial possible shit for, like, the first year, like making copies, get a cup of coffee, like, you know, doing, like, filing, like all of, like, the basic level stuff. And then if you don't get promoted within a year, you get fired. So I think that James is actually correct in what he's saying there. That makes sense to me, that they would be, like, that students would be entitled and they would be pissing off the companies, because a lot of these companies, and this has been going on for a long ass time, this has been going on since before any of this woke shit started, would hire students, like recent college graduates, make them do the most menial possible stuff, because what they want to see is, are they going to show up? Are they going to put in effort? Are they going to earn that promotion? Are they going to fall in line? Are they going to do what they're told? And if they don't, they get fired. So he's probably correct about that.
And
they actually did a FedEx ad about that years ago. And you'd think they would catch on, like, I don't want to be that guy they're making fun of in the FedEx ad, but no.
Oh no, not. They are princes and princesses. They're the worst.
But my question is this: is that specific to Harvard, or is that from other? Is that just a generational thing?
And so this is happening though, and we're already seeing it. I'm just poking in a direction that's already happening organically to give people a little bit of that sense of steel in their spine. I've given many nuanced arguments, both on Twitter and in writing, also in public talks, about, the kids who are actually making it through, like at Northwestern, the 1 out of 85 or 1 out of 86, I think, is the actual proportions. I think there's 8,600 students and 100 of them are conservative or thereabouts. I might be off by 100. The kids that are actually making it through intact, and the kids that have a purpose and a sense of direction for why they're going to college and what they're trying to get out of it and what they're doing, and can make the demonstrable proof that they've attained an education, hire those kids. The rest of them, I mean, look at what you're dealing with. You've got to see that the college degree on a resume is now a net liability, not a net asset, and make your hiring decisions accordingly. That's what it really means. And parents should be considering this too, because these brands are just going to get more and more and more toxic as it gets more and more out of step with what we're willing to tolerate in our country.
What about the circular nature of the whole scam? What I mean by that is that people are going to colleges now and getting, I don't even know what degrees they're getting, DEI, they're probably even getting degrees and stuff like that. And then whole professions are coming into being to provide these graduates with employment, most of these professions are funded with public dollars, tax dollars, right? The whole DEI profession. If you're a sociology major, if you're a social worker.
Guess what? Do you guys know how I told you yesterday that the communists are more appreciative of my work than the conservatives? Guess who just retweeted that Twitter thread? A revolutionary communist saying, "I love this speech." I have communists retweeting the Twitter thread saying this is oh so great, but I can't get conservative influencers to share it because of feelings.
Social work major, if you're even, as counselors, you don't have to be a teacher. You could go into any of the social sciences, and you've got our federal agencies, Department of Education, Health and Human Services, blah, 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 that are coming up on a daily basis with ways. It's like a big circle. How do we keep our friends funded? How do we make sure that, like, the snake that eats that? I mean, that's what I think of.
Yeah, well, that is what's that is what's happening. Also, it's like we're almost concentrating the rot, but especially like you said, the government, and then these kind of like goofy mandatory political officers in universities, or sorry, in corporations, like ESG officers, DEI officers, and so on. This is all just a gigantic grift. As corporations can start to step away from this, they're going to be able to start closing down those unproductive departments. That's really going to be, I mean, that ball's already starting to roll down the hill, because the main reason that stuff has been happening, besides ESG scores, which are now on the rocks, which is a huge player. The other main reason is because of exploitations of civil rights law, where they came along and said, you have civil rights exposure, somebody's going to accuse you of racism, so you have to hire. That all started to change once the Harvard discrimination and UNC discrimination lawsuits hit the Supreme Court and the decision was rendered. That's not employment yet, but the immediate question after was, if colleges and universities can't discriminate in admissions, what does that mean about employment? In other words, if we can overturn Bakke versus Board of Regents of the state of California, what does that mean about Griggs versus Duke Power in Supreme Court case law language?
What they're getting into is what the inevitable end result of this is they're going to try to repeal the Civil Rights Act. Now, while there are valid arguments for repealing the Civil Rights Act, because that's really, at the end of the day, what would be required to completely cut this stuff out of organizations, right? There are very valid arguments to repealing the Civil Rights Act, and many of which I am sympathetic to. But I am also aware that repealing the Civil Rights Act would be the match that gets thrown on the lighter fluid that sets off the left for a monumental round of bullshit, and will probably lead to Republicans losing every election for the rest of their natural lives, just like the abortion stuff is contributing to Republicans losing every election for the rest of their natural lives. Just like the abortion stuff led to them losing the 2022 midterms, it led to them not having a successful 2023, is going to lead to record fundraising. Repealing the Civil Rights Act, while there are valid arguments to make for it, would do exactly the same thing, but it would probably do it on steroids because it's about race.
That becomes that ball is rolling down the hill. And so once that hurdle is overcome, these things within the corporate world, and if we keep hammering at ESG, these things in the corporate world start to fall apart. As for the government, the maxim still applies: stop hiring college graduates. Well, the government's hiring them. Well, who's actually hiring them then? Taxpayers. So that means that the taxpayers are going to have to start doing their civic duty and complaining vigorously to their elected representatives about these positions, these offices, these bureaucracies that are being set up, and demanding that they get shrunken or closed entirely, and that elected representatives and others are just going to have to get removed if they don't. Plus, we're going to have to start electing people who are willing to kind of go scorched earth on those bureaucracies, because we have to stop hiring these people. If they want to get a job, and I hope they do want to get a job, I hope that they will go get trained in something useful rather than, busybody tyranny.
Right. But they're getting, I mean, I brought this up as you were talking. This is my home state of North Carolina. And this was just announced yesterday. U.S. Department of Education announced today that North Carolina will get $15.9 million in federal grants to help address post-pandemic academic recovery. DPI, Department of Public Instruction, will get $7.9 million for PRISM, Patterns for Reaching and Impacting Students in Math. You can only imagine what horrors lie within.
Anti-racist math.
But this is the one that caught my eye. A project meant to improve math outcomes for hiding students. UNC Chapel Hill, so university, will get $4 million for strengthening social emotional learning in high school. So the university is going to get this money. And then it says, with integrated multi-tiered mindfulness programming, Village of Wisdom, a Durham-based group that focuses on helping Black students, will get $4 million for That's Just Good Teaching program. Now, I want to show you what this Village of Wisdom is. First of all, look what it says. We work with Black families to protect Black genius. As you go down through...
Why is that bad? Listen, man, I'm against the woke shit as much as anyone else, but Deb is now developing quite a pattern of attacking Black efforts focused on Black people for no good fucking reason. Listen, maybe as Deb continues to make her way through this website, she will show me something woke. But just because something is targeted at Black people does not make it woke. Just because something is being done for Black people does not mean that it's inherently bad. This is why the right looks racist, guys. This right here.
Through this, I mean, you'll recognize instantly all the symbolism, right?
I don't see it.
But then look at the supporters.
Hang on. I don't see it. I really don't. I look at this shit all day, every day. Let me just go back. We convene families through intense workshops exploring, okay, racial bias. Okay, someone can make the argument. That I can get up behind. That's not cool. It's got equity on it. Okay, that's got a good point. But what is Deb actually offended at? Because if all of this is just about, like, this is not the most woke thing I've ever seen by, like, a long shot. I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
All the symbolism, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then look at the supporters. Look at the supporters. Of course, we have the usual suspects, right? We've got, Chan Zuckerberg is in there, I believe. There it is, Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, Office of Equity Affairs, etc. But what really got me with all this is that as I drilled down into their, about us and their team and what they do, this is that they have a pledge to protect Black genius. This is what they call Black genius elements.
So what?
Federal tax dollars to
interest awareness, racial identity, multicultural navigation, selective trust. Okay, social justice. I'm against that. That's Marxism. But you know what this looks like to me? If I'm being honest about it, because unlike Deb, I actually talk to people in the Black community, and I talk to people like Jeff Charles. Deb has Jeff Charles blocked on Twitter because Jeff Charles made the mistake of disagreeing with Deb. I talk to Jeff Charles. I talk to Donnie the Don. I talk to Sonny Johnson. I've been on Sonny Johnson's radio show like multiple times. And one of the things that I've learned from the like Black conservatives, Black libertarians, that I think that Deb would benefit from learning is that the anti-woke Black community has fundamentally different definitions for these things than the anti-woke white community. And this is something, honestly, like I've had trouble grappling with this. I really have, because like they actually make really good cases for redefining, like taking back the word woke and earning the word woke, or like redefining the word woke, because they were like, it was our word first, and the social justice mafia like appropriated our word. And I was like, you know what? That's a really good point. Or they talk about how the system keeps the Black community down, and the Black community needs to rise up and like rebel against the system and like all this stuff. And it's like, you know what? You're making some good points. But like, what I know is that when they talk about issues related to race, they're not doing it in a woke way. It's not the same thing. Maj Touré is the same thing. But the part that I think is confusing to a lot of people who don't talk to these people because they're fucking racist, Deb. Like, a lot of these people is that they have different definitions for these words, and they think about them in different ways. And in order to understand, it's like with reading Socialist. It's like, in order to understand what's on this website, you actually have to talk to the Black community, Deb. Deb should find a Black friend, because I'm sure she has at least one, because she's a good anti-woke lady who would be the type of person who would say, I have Black friends. So Deb needs to go find her Black friend, and she needs to have her Black friend explain this to her, because what I'm seeing on this, and again, I could be wrong, I haven't looked in depth into it, is it's like one of those things where the Black community is using these words differently than what Deb thinks they mean. It reminds me of the time you looked into the Rochester, New York school system, and they used similar words and language, but the usage indicated they didn't mean them in the same way. That's exactly what I was thinking. When we did that whole big investigation into the Rochester, New York, like, school district, and we were like, this is going to be some super woke stuff. And what we found was a bunch of Black ladies who were like, no nonsense. They were focused on family involvement. And we were like, I don't care if they're using the word equity. I'm not mad at what they're doing. They're not using equity in the same way that social justice people are using equity.
To this organization, you got to know everyone here is a college graduate, probably of one of the North Carolina schools. The University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill is getting money to funnel into this some kind of way. I don't even know how that relationship works. And this is race segregated. This organization is aimed at one specific race of students.
See, this is Deb's problem. And this is what gets Deb into trouble. And this is what got Deb mobbed on Twitter by literally millions of Black people. Because Deb has a problem when Black people talk about Black people. And it's fucking gross, Deb. It's gross, and it's fucking racist. Like, why are you upset when Black people are talking about the Black community and trying to lift up their own? It's like, this is a cultural thing, man. And Deb, because maybe you don't actually have the Black friend that I'm gonna bet you have somewhere on your Rolodex just to say you have a Black friend. I truly don't know what else to say other than like, am I wrong? Am I wrong that like it's perfectly fine for Black people to do things within the Black community that are specifically focused on the Black community, and that's not woke? Am I like, I need the chat to tell me if I'm wrong here, because like, I think it's a positive thing when the Black community tries to lift up the Black community. But Deb doesn't want to allow them to do that because it's only directed at the Black community. That's racist, bro. Sorry.
Yeah, and look at that, what it says about genius, though.
I know,
So
right?
the goal is to protect Black genius. Then Black genius is defined as social justice and building capacity to dismantle systems.
See, that's the only part I have a question
systems
about.
Of justice
That's
and equity
woke as
with
shit.
a raised fist.
I agree with that.
In other words, Black genius equals communism,
Exactly.
quite explicitly.
right.
with its kind of stupid, cutesy language that we're all learning to see through finally.
See, that I agree with James that's the one that I would have a problem with, and I would want more information about that. But again, because I actually talk to people in the Black community, I know that they use that language differently than socialist. Now, of course, there are Black socialists too. They usually have beautiful afros and they look amazing, and I'm a little jealous if I'm honest about it. But just because, like, again, it's a cultural thing. Well, no, they're saying that Black genius equals communism because next to genius on the website, they have social justice. And then it has stuff about equity and systems of oppression, which is communist. That's Marxism. But I do wonder how they're actually using it, because this is one of those cases where I've seen people in the Black community use this language differently than what Deb is thinking and James is thinking. And it is very, very specific to the Black community. And we've seen this multiple times. That Rochester school investigation is a great example of that, where they were using the word equity. They were using the term social justice, but they were not using it in a socialist way.
Yeah, well, this is why the
But you only know
dumping
that if
money
you actually talk to
into
people.
UNC to advance more of this crap.
This
So guess
beer is
what?
so
Stop
good.
hiring all the college
love it
graduates
so
from
much.
UNC and let the good ones sort it out with lawsuits.
Right. And there was another thing. You see this picture in the background that I just want to hear
Of Black people?
The planning. This is Black Genius Planning. Now, I was poking around here the other day, and I came down here and I said, "Oh, what's over here? Oh, what's this? What's this lookbook?
Pictures of Black people?
What do you see?
Pictures of Black
in
people.
This picture?
Pictures of
Fists,
Black people.
Right?
Yeah, lots of fists.
Right. Now, what's on her shirt?
Liberation is inevitable.
Okay, there it is.
Liberation
There's
is the same liberation as in communism.
Correct. So
hey man,
people might be wondering.
Listen, I have to give James. I have to start to give James a little bit of credit, because James is at least saying liberation means it means communism. But the follow-up question I would have to that, James, is when they're saying liberate, if James is acknowledging that liberation is code for communism, which it is, correct, James, what are they saying that you should be liberated from? And chat, feel free to answer this question. When socialists say liberation, and that is synonymous with communism, liberate from what, James? What are they liberating themselves from? There's a word that they're liberating themselves from, James. What are they liberating themselves from if liberation means communism? Are they liberating themselves from capitalism? Why won't James say they're liberating themselves from capitalism? Because they're liberating themselves from capitalism, right, James? They're liberating themselves from capitalism. Is that what that means? If liberation means communism, they're liberating themselves from capitalism. Is that from capitalism? Why won't James say capitalism? Why does James refuse to tell his audience this is about capitalism? Because my audience knows it's about capitalism. My audience reflectively knows this is about capitalism. So why isn't James telling people this is about capitalism? Why isn't James saying this? And capitalism, of course, is defined as private property ownership. But James refuses to say the term capitalism. Why does James refuse to say the word capitalism? Why? I have no problem saying the word capitalism. I have no problem defining capitalism as private property ownership, because that is how they define it. But for some reason, James refuses to say the word capitalism. But we don't. Because we tell our audience the truth, James. Maybe James also hates capitalism. It's entirely possible. God. He's not saying capitalism because someone is breathing down his neck. I wonder who that is. I wonder who is refusing to pay James's bills unless James continues to say it's about Western values. when in fact we all know it's about capitalism. It is a little funny that he seems particularly adverse to the word capitalism. Where does that come from, I wonder? Where does that come from? Is it because New Discourses is funded by a hardcore Christian? And James needs to walk the line of saying Western values to appease the people that are funding him? Is it because of the Mills for Liberty? Why? Because we know, as Massage Chair Wellness Allison says, because all roads lead to abolish capitalism. James's life's work boils down to abolishing capitalism, and yet he won't say it. Checkmate, indeed. Do I think James and company make the mistake of thinking capitalism is a subset of Western values? Well, for most people out there, I do think that they are indeed dumb enough to realize, to believe that capitalism is a Western value. I do believe that. But the fact of the matter is that if you listen to the left for any small period of time, you understand that their goal is to abolish capitalism, and that they don't care if people are white, they don't care if people are men, they don't care if people are Christian, because they want to co-opt all religion. And so most of the people who are saying Western values, Western values, Western values, Western values, Western values, I can categorize them as being stupid and ignorant and lazy because they don't listen to the left like we do. But James knows better, because James is so well read on this stuff. I just don't know how it's possible that he missed the memo that it was not about Western values and it is entirely about capitalism. I don't know how that's possible. I would like to be able to say that James is just being a fucking thick-headed idiot, that James hit his head too hard that time that he hurt his head and it fucked up his brain and he's just not seeing it. I would love to be able to say those things, but I cannot figure out a way that James Lindsay does not know that this is about capitalism, and he's choosing to lie to his audience about it. I wish I didn't think that, but that's what I think. Peyton says he always says the issue is never the issue, it's always revolution, but he never says the revolution is to overthrow capitalism at the end of it. Yep. He has to know. Because James has been reading the left long enough to know that they never say Western values.
You know, maybe you can help them understand, because I've gotten to the point now, James, where some things just so instantly click and I get what they mean, and that I have trouble connecting the dots for people. How does this connect to college? Like, when you talk about changing the incentives, how does this connect? And my theory is that people are going to college who really ought not have gone there in the first place. They're not getting any kind of a skill that's really marketable. They come out and they need a way to make money. And along comes the overly bloated, disgusting $800 billion education budget in America. Mm-hmm. And to me, this is one way you know it's over budget, it's overfunded. And they're like, all right, we got to create jobs. We've got to create some places to dump the money and spend the money. And so we can say, don't hire college graduates. Private enterprise may be listening. Even Duke Power may be going, in fact, I know for a fact that Duke Power is going, maybe we don't need to require college degrees for every job. I know they're already doing that. But what about these NGOs and public-private partnerships? They seem to be working overtime to make work and make job programs to suck in this money and create sustainable funding for their Maoism.
Well, we've got to keep the pressure on.
It's not just Maoism.
Like I said, don't hire college graduates, or stop hiring college graduates, applies through the taxpayer as well. So we want to turn the tap off to that funding. We're not going to be able to stop them from doing it directly. Right. We've also got to expose the grift over and over and over again to get people to not, like, that whole project just has to be looked on as at first cringe and eventually an egregious waste of money, a completely inappropriate use of taxpayer money. And that's a harder fight. But to make the brand be that it goes from you go to college to get a good job to you go to college to work at some bullshit communist NGO, that would be a coup. That would be a major thing. So you're sitting there with your 14, 15-year-old trying to figure out future planning. And it's like, well, there are all these trades. There's these kind of whatever would fill in the gap as like specialist apprenticeship training or whatever to go work in a professional environment. Or you can take the pathway to go into a garbage NGO that's funded off of stupid public dollars where you don't do any real work but cause problems and everybody hates you. If you want to do that, go to college. And the goal is to make the branding of going to college bad enough so that it dents what's going on at college bad enough to where the colleges, the colleges, I believe they can, and I actually believe they will change in the long run. If we survive this as a country.
You believe the colleges are going to change? Let me ask you guys this. Because I'm an organizational psychologist by trade, I spent a lot of years doing change management. I spent a lot of years studying this stuff. I know how social systems work. This is why I'm so good at analyzing the socialist stuff, because I know how to analyze the psychology of different social situations. And that's why a lot of my predictions are good, because I have the organizational psychology background. But most of you guys, I don't think, have that background. So let me ask you this. Do you have to be an organizational psychologist to realize that there is no universe in this lifetime in which the colleges and universities are going to significantly change? The things that need to happen for colleges and universities to change is, so like the new college thing in Florida, where they basically like took over the board of trustees and they just started firing people. New College of Florida is going to change. Like, it's going to change. Now, it's going to take years for them to change. It's going to take at least a couple more years to really see the results of that particular experiment, right? But they went in, they took over the board of trustees, they fired the college president, they fired a whole bunch of people. They brought new people in. They did it really quickly. It was about as well done as I think they probably could have done it. New college is going to change. Harvard is not going to change. And I fundamentally question the value that and this is something people are not going to want to hear, okay? Because there has been so much negative press about what New College in Florida is doing. And I'm not saying that I think it's deserved. I do not think it's deserved at all. I think that New College is doing exactly the right thing. Is the value of a New College degree going to go down because of the controversy? I don't know the answer to that. But I know for sure as shit the value of a Harvard degree is not going to go down. The value of a Yale degree is not going to go down. James can say they are all he wants. I don't believe that's true. I can look at something like a New College and say there has been so much bad press about it and most people are stupid and most people don't pay attention. Is the value of that degree going to go down, even though the quality of that degree is probably going to go up? Now, some would argue that give it enough time and it'll level itself out. But what's required to change colleges is what New College is doing. New College is one college out of 4,000 colleges across the country. The rest of them ain't doing that.
Country, they will change. But what they're going to do is they're going to be a sad little dog with their tail between their legs, coming up last when they've been left behind, trying to get back to the front of the pack that they used to be in. They're not going to start to change until they have clearly, unambiguously lost relevance to the point where the administrators start being willing to stand up to the people that are going to call them a racist or a sexist or a transphobe or whatever else for standing up to them. And that is down the road. Something else people have got to understand, and this is a really hard pill to swallow. And if you have children, it's a horrifying pill to swallow, and it's a real pill. And that pill is, I don't know which one will be absolutely last, but it will either be education or college. That is the universities that are the last thing that we will fix. If we were to start fixing
it will be K through 12 education that is, well, no, it'll probably be the universities. So what James is saying is that education is going to be the last thing to be fixed. He's right about that. I don't think education is ever going to be fixed because it's so difficult to fix it. But is it going to be K through 12 education, or is it going to be the colleges and universities? My initial instinct was K through 12 education, but I actually think that the tenure process at universities is going to make the universities impossible to fix.
Everything in our society and unwoking it now, education in colleges and universities will compete to be in dead last for the thing that will be reformed and renewed. I think that colleges have too much invested in them. They're too old. There's too much brand recognition. There's too much kind of momentum behind it. But to get them to change what they're doing is going to require them to come tail between their legs, trying to make up for the fact that they've become irrelevant, that they're branding. So what do we do about?
Do you know what's going to get in the way of fixing the colleges and universities? The faculty. The faculty are not going to allow it. And what James is doing is he's looking at it from like an administrator perspective, which is like, holy shit, we can't get butts in seats. Holy shit, we can't get people to pay our tuitions because they've effed with the student loans. Like, administrators think about these things. They don't think a lot about them, but they do think about them. Faculty don't give an F. Faculty only care about themselves. They are some of the most selfish, ridiculous people in the world. They don't look at numbers. They don't look at logic. They don't look at reason. They only look at things. They're like, being a faculty member is inherently narcissistic. I'm just going to say that. And so, like, the thing that's going to get in the way of fixing the colleges and universities is actually the faculty members who are not going to allow you to do it. And by the way, they're going to cause problems the entire time. And they're going to do all these fucking votes of no confidence. And they're going to have all these meetings on campus. And they're going to be constantly riling people up and pissing people off, and then not doing the things that they should be doing and not listening to the administrators, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. College presidents can get fired because faculty members don't like them. That's reality. If you as a college, and I said this to Rufo when he first went to New College, I was like, you got to watch out for the faculty, bro. Now, Rufo was in a different position because he was being put there by DeSantis, so he was actually in a pretty safe position. But most college presidents are in constant danger of getting fired if they piss off the faculty.
Them creating this job monstrosity. Well, make it as hard as we can for those public funded job monstrosities to get funded, and then make it to where it's like, oh, you want to, like, where are you going to school? I'm going to school at, Penn State. What do you want to be? I want to be a doctor. That's pretty cool. Or I want to go to U of M so I can be a lawyer, or I want to go to so I can be an engineer at Purdue or whatever. Oh, I'm going to go to whatever university. And it's like, why? So you can like work for one of these goofball NGOs and like wear t-shirts and like waste your life. Like, that's the brand that the typical young person and their parents really should start veering toward. Like, you're not going to become like a doctor or an astronaut or all the cool jobs, high powered. You want to get in a corporate job? You want to work at like HR? Like, you don't want to be like, a manager or an engineer or something cool. You want to work in HR. That's what you go to college for. You go to college to learn like lame people skills that are actually kind of perverted. That's the branding that has to be there. The magic spell has been for 50 years. You go to college to get a good job. Well,
Right.
no, you go to college to get a lame NGO job is what you go to college for. You go to college so you can work in HR for the rest of your life instead of having kids. Like, that's the brand that really needs to get attached to going to college.
James thinks that the only thing people do about college is go to work for an NGO or get an HR job. Really? Has James never heard of a professional school? Because when I went to Boston University, I went to the College of Communications at Boston University. I didn't go to the College of Liberal Arts. I went to the College of Communication. They also had the College of Management. They had the College of Engineering. They had the Arts College. Like, there are plenty of things you can study in college. And I say, and the irony of it is, when I got my PhD, I ended up doing corporate training. So, I mean, I wasn't working in HR, but I was working peripheral to HR, but that wasn't exactly what I was doing. So it is a little bit ironic, but I didn't go to school for that. When I went to get my bachelor's, I went to school to, ironically, I went in as a journalism major, and then within 2 weeks decided I didn't want to be a journalist anymore. And now I'm spending my time being a fucking journalist. But like, I went to school to actually learn how to do things, to get a job. I didn't want to work for an NGO. I went to school with like film majors and stuff, and none of them got HR jobs. A lot of them went to Hollywood though. Like,
until colleges decide, wait a minute, maybe we want to get back in the game.
I thought when we started seeing people with college degrees right back at Starbucks and driving Uber, driving for Uber, that people would start to catch on. I thought, and this, I mean, we're going back to like micro dirty jobs time. So, not yesterday or anything, that people would figure out that unless you wanted to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or something like that, where colleges would seem anyway necessary until we bring back apprenticeship programs and so forth, that your average person who doesn't have one of those specific interests would at least compare and contrast it with the trades, or compare and contrast it with just going to work and seeing what would happen and so on. Because they'd get at least at minimum a 4-year jump on the people who pulled themselves out of the job market to spend time in a classroom learning who knows what that they're never going to use again. But it didn't work that way. And I know that because I'm a private tutor, and the biggest part of my job, my clientele, is college-bound seniors. Mm-hmm. And it's been incredibly difficult for me this year in particular, because I have these earnest kids coming to me and their parents, and they're applying to 10, 12, 15 different schools. So never mind the application fees that they're throwing down to apply to all these schools. They are spending hours of their fall of their senior year and their life writing these in.
This is exactly what I'm thinking right now. Neither of these people have ever actually worked in a real job in the real world. James is an academic and a professor. Deb, to the best of my understanding, married someone with money and then pretends to be a tutor. I shouldn't say that. Deb doesn't pretend to be a tutor. I think Deb has some clients. I remember Deb constantly complaining that she didn't have enough clients to, make a full-time salary, but I'm sure that Deb does have some clients. But the thing of it is like, if you've only ever done stuff like this, you have no fucking idea how the real works. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. I've been a college admissions officer. I've been a fundraiser. I've been a marketing professional. I've been a fucking consultant. I've been a corporate trainer. I had, before I started doing YouTube, 20 fucking years of doing jobs in the real world in which I was working for someone else. I think James has been mostly a college professor, which is not a real world job. And I think Deb has mostly been a private tutor, which, I'm sorry, is also not a real world job.
Inane answers to inane questions for applications. Who knows who's going to read them? I'm trying to help them improve the writing. And here's the worst part. I'm looking at the writing and I'm thinking, what I'm taking from it is, not only were you not taught to write, so I have to start over from scratch, but you don't know yourself. Because when they're asking me, what should I put here? And I'm looking at a draft and I read the draft aloud to them, they wince. You can see it on their face. That's my first step. I always read it aloud and they go like this.
Do you read it with a funny voice, Deb?
And they're like, it just sounds, and I said, you know what? It doesn't sound like you. It sounds like you wrote it to please somebody, but it's not actually you. So I probably spend 3/4 of my time helping my students figure out in their senior year who they are, what they like, why they're going to college. And tragically, far too many of them aren't really sure. They're going because they were sort of told they have to, and they want to go, even when you put it to them. I had one kid who's going for computer science. I said, oh, do you want to become an actual computer scientist, or do you want to be like a full stack developer? I want to be a full stack developer. Have you considered a boot camp? You know, I mean, I'm actually saying these things. And the kid's like, no, I need to go to college. They won't hear it. It's like not listening to you, don't want to hear it. So it's painful because I don't want to not make a living, but I do try to be honest with them and show them opportunities. And
I also think that what I hear Deb and James kind of discounting here is that going to college is not just about academics for like most people who go to college. It's about playing college sports or doing college clubs or networking. The number one reason to go to Harvard has nothing to do with academics. The number one reason to go to Harvard is to get access to the Harvard University network, to get into the clubs, to get your foot in the door. That's the value of going to Harvard. It is not about the academics. It's not what you learn. And also, I think like I loved being in college. I fucking loved being in college, and it had nothing to do with the classes I was taking. I liked being around my friends. I liked the freedom of it. I liked being able, which I suppose you could say, well, you could have moved out of the house anyway, Carlin. But, I mean, for me, like, I was a really shy kid because my parents fucked with me emotionally my entire childhood. And so when I went to college, I was I know this might sound weird now because you guys see me on the internet all the time. I was shy. I was quiet. The people I met in college changed my life. I'm friends with some of the people I met in college until this day. I had a lot of fucking great sex in college, and I don't regret any of it. Like, I had a really effing good time in college. And so I think what I hear being discounted by saying, well, why don't you just go to a boot camp if you want to be a full stack developer? Well, you're not going to get the college experience if you go to a boot camp. You're not going to get a college experience if you're learning stuff on the internet. And there's a lot of value in understanding that you can learn stuff on the internet, right? And that you can pick up the skill set to do all those things. But how much are you going to miss out on? Like I did these alternative spring breaks in college where I got to go do community service in different parts of the country. I got to meet people I never would have been able to meet otherwise. Again, really good sex. Really effing good sex. I wouldn't trade my college experience. Now, admittedly, I went to a non-woke college. At the time, it's super woke now. Boston University sucks now. But when I was at Boston University, it was still actually very conservative. And I hated that it was conservative, but now I look back and I appreciate it. The social aspects of college, like partying, like getting fucking drunk in a frat, hanging out with your friends and what, it's just like, you can't replace these things, you can't have those in another place. Oh, you got a glitter slime? Oh no, I was just looking at it. One of them's already sold out. Oh no.
They are so completely convinced that without college, their life is over. Without a degree, no one's going to hire them, or the people who hire them will never take them seriously. There's no other pathway. And that also tells me that in order to change the incentives on the K-12 side, so we talk about which is going to be last, college or, in order to change the incentives as far as what they're making important in K-12, we have to change the colleges because that's what they're teaching. What they ask for is what they're teaching.
That's right. So these kids are probably being propagandized, not just by the kind of cultural mythology that you go to college to get a good job, which their parents have probably repeated to them at different times, at different places, but they're getting propagandized relentlessly in K through 12 that college is the only way to be like a successful person. That is the goal of education, is primary and secondary education, is to get you into college. That's partly good intentioned. It's partly just like low information, robotic, like stuff. And it's partly a driven goal to get them into the revolutionary university.
Well, I agree with this. Turn
their brains to mush. But
actually, no, I do agree with this too, Liquid Marble. There is something I agree with Deb about. College has been pushed onto students since they were kids and has convinced them without it they cannot be successful. I agree with that as well. And I think that that's absolutely bullshit. I just think that, like, we should acknowledge that there are reasons that people would want to go to college that, quite frankly, have nothing to do with academics and have nothing to do with getting a job. Like, the best semester I ever had in college was like, oh, I remember I graduated from college 20 years ago. I still remember this. The best semester I had in college was I arranged my schedule, and I had a full course load. I had Mondays and Fridays off. On Wednesdays, I didn't go to class until 6 p.m. at night, and I had one class, that took place once a week from 6 to 9. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, my schedule did not start until 12:30. Thursdays were a really packed day though, because I had to do like 3 classes on Thursday, because I had like 12:30 to 2, and then 2 to 3:30, and then I had a break, and then I had another 6 to 9 class. But like, I'm sorry, that was the greatest fucking semester of my life. I had so much free time. And one of the classes I was taking was literally children's literature for an English requirement, where I had to read children's books. You can't replace those memories, man. You can't replace the memories of having a 4-day weekend every single weekend and not having to get out of bed until noon on any day ever. I can never get that time back again.
The fact is, like, a couple of things.
Oh, wait, that's kind of my schedule now.
What you said, you read back their essays and it sounds like they're just trying to please this other person. Guess what? That's the brand. That's what college does to you. College turns you into this, like, non-person who's trying to check mark a box off of a very artificial, very cringe, very fake world. And that's what we've got to start getting.
Well, the high schools are doing it too.
Yeah. Well, the high schools, of course, are, but the high schools are also strongly
someone send me a $20 super chat right now.
Let's do this question, I guess.
Please. Yes. So first of all, thank you, Chrissy, so much for the super chat. And she's asking, it says, hi, James, college is no longer about a degree that can get you a job. She means job. It's now having kids get into debt for a useless degree, so they will resent capitalism and create change makers act as a revolution.
Wait. Chrissy is my new favorite person, even though she's giving money to Deb. We're going to overlook that for a second, because Chrissy correctly points out that college is making students resent capitalism. James, this would be an excellent opportunity for you to say the word capitalism, James. This would be an excellent opportunity for you to explain what is going on and how it relates to capitalism, because apparently Chrissy knows it relates to capitalism. Let's see.
I completely agree with that.
It's like indentured servitude.
Well, yeah, it is. It's actually, it's
Say
like the
word,
company
James.
town model.
Say it.
It's like they get you in tremendous amounts of debt. This actually bleeds into the thing that I wanted to say. I didn't realize it would. And I've called it bourgeois overproduction, but there's definitely a lawsuit possible what I'm going to describe. But the goal is to get kids to go and have tremendous debt, to be underemployable with mountains of debt, which makes them into massive discontents. What was one of the biggest political pushes in the last few years? It was student loan forgiveness. And so the goal is to create this massively dependent class that's going to start basically begging the taxpayer or the government to bail them out. And they have a good argument. It's just the wrong solution to the problem. The people who should be on the hook for this are the colleges. Now, this is a funny thing,
I actually agree with James on
Mike
this.
Rowe and a long time ago.
Now, James, of course, has done his best to never say the fucking word capitalism ever. James is like this close to saying capitalism, then he's like, nope, not gonna say it. Not gonna say it, Doc. Not gonna say it. But where James is correct is that I do think that colleges, if there's going to be student loan forgiveness, it should come from the fucking endowments. So I agree with James on that. Even if James is still refusing to say the word capitalism, proving that the super chatter knows what's up. And James, again, is just in an active state of avoidance.
dirty jobs and people don't want those jobs and they won't be taken seriously. And there's a lot of it has to do with class identity. People want to be in the bourgeois class. They don't want to be in the stupid, dirty prole.
What's another word for the bourgeois class? Isn't that funny? People want to be in the bourgeois class. What does bourgeois mean, guys? Remind me. When James says bourgeois class, what is he actually saying that he's working very hard not to say? James, is bourgeois code for capitalist? Why aren't you saying capitalist, James? Why are you saying bourgeois when you could be saying capitalist? Why aren't you saying capitalist class? Why aren't you saying capitalism? Because bourgeois means capitalism, right? Because bourgeois means the private property owners, and the private property owners are the capitalist? Is that what I'm hearing? Why aren't you saying that, James? The super chatter said capitalism. Why aren't you saying capitalism?
Class that's not taken seriously. That's a huge part of this. It's bourgeois overproduction in a sense. So
capitalist overproduction?
Way back, and it's got to be way back because I know where I was going when I heard this on the radio, which means I was listening to the radio in my car, so God knows how long ago that was.
Must be ages ago.
It had to have been in the set of years somewhere between 2007 and 2009. So that long ago. And I was driving in my car to go to this, thing I did every Monday night. And I'm listening to NPR. So, I was a good getting brainwashed lefty on the university, young, smart person who gets informed on NPR. And they had a segment. It was like an All Things Considered segment or something like that. And I remember it stuck out tremendously to me. And I don't know why. But what they were talking about is that NPR back then was saying that there might be a case against college admissions offices that might end up even being legally actionable, because what they were doing was they were leading kids to get degrees that were underemployable. And in specific, they gave the example of veterinary medicine. And so what they were doing, they gave this analysis, and I forget if it was a particular university or a class of universities or universities overall.
All right, I'm done my first beer. Cheers.
16 years or whatever since I heard this. But they were talking about how universities were producing veterinary school graduates at a rate of 11 times what the market could absorb. And they were using veterinary medicine for two particular reasons as the example. One of the reasons is because veterinary school is extraordinarily expensive. Yes. If you don't know that, it's like, I don't know what it is now. A few years ago, a friend of mine went through it and it was like $300,000. It's extremely expensive. Veterinary school is. And so that's one of the reasons. So massive amounts of student debt.
It was really good.
To go
10
to vet
out of 10,
school.
For sure.
And then, so you wouldn't be able to pay this debt off because on the other hand, veterinary medicine is a very weird career path. Most vets they don't work for a corporation. Some of them do for like farms and stuff, but the vast majority, especially of small animal veterinarians, which is, by the way, everybody loves puppies and kitties and wants to be a veterinarian, goes to be a small animal vet, not a large animal vet. People who want to put on a glove up to their shoulder and stick their hand up a cow in a place that they don't want to, go to large animal vets. And so most people are small and they work in these small independent veterinary clinics.
Hang on.
And guess what?
I just took a sip of this beer. This is the double grape fluffernutter. This beer legitimately tastes like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Hang on. And it's beautiful. I don't know if you guys can see. It's like this beautiful, rich, dark royal purple. Hang on. I can smell the peanut butter. Oh my God. I'm about to have an orgasm. Just don't mind me. Don't mind me. I'm not doing anything inappropriate. You can see my hands. I'm not doing anything inappropriate. This is amazing. I have never had a beer taste this much like peanut butter. But it also has the grape. You can taste every component. Everything is there. Holy shit. Again, I got to get a sponsorship. Branch Blade Brewing Company, please sponsor me. This is the best beer I have ever had. This is amazing. This is one of my new top 3 beers, like, of all time. Oh, I got to reach out to them, man. They're in Keene. I hope they're libertarians. They must be. Well, Keene is very libertarian, so maybe I gotta get a sponsorship, man. 2 thumbs up. Well done.
That makes a weird market. You're not looking for, well, can I get hired? Everybody gets to go just start their own clinic. And so what happens is you have all these graduates, you're graduating them at 11 times what the market can absorb.
So good.
And instead of it just being that you have 10 to 1 unemployable, what you actually have is 10 to 1 market saturation.
I'm going to make we need to start making a series of memes with James on them that just says, say capitalism, James. And, like, I want them in his replies, like, all the fucking time. I want every time James tweets for him to have a metric ton of replies. And if James blocks them, you reply to the people in James's replies. And I want everything to say capitalism, bitch. That's gonna be that's gonna be my next t-shirt design, is say capitalism, bitch, with James on it. With, like, someone, here's what needs to happen. This is the beer talking. I can't be held responsible for this, okay? Someone who is not me needs to make a meme of me in a dominatrix outfit with, like, a whip or something, with my boot on James's head or something like that, and out of my mouth needs to be, say capitalism, bitch. Can someone make that for me, please? Just like, please, can someone make that? You would make my day. Hashtag say capitalism, James. Make it tasteful, bot. Tasteful dominatrix, please. Capitalism is our safe word. Yeah, you could do the milk meme too. Not that one, that one. The milk meme, that could work for it. Rottweiler says, I suspect someone tightened James's leash after this. He made some good points. Almost said capitalism. He wasn't too involved with Moms for Liberty as he is now. I mean, to be fair, Rottweiler, James really had years and years and years and years and years where he could have said capitalism when he didn't. It probably took me as long as it did to figure out that it was all about capitalism, because James wasn't saying. Part of the reason I'm so pissed off about this is I figured out early on that whiteness wasn't about skin color. Whiteness was about who owned the power structure. I got that, okay? But I didn't make the connection that everything was about abolishing capitalism. And I really do think that the reason it took me as long as it did to make the connection that everything was about abolishing capitalism was because I was listening to fucking James and he wasn't saying it. And I trusted him. And there's a lot that I think that James is very good at. James is a wonderful teacher. He is a genius. He has, he must have a photographic memory. He is so good at so many things. And I will not take anything away from him just because he won't say capitalism, and I will keep haranguing his ass until he starts saying it, because someone fucking needs to, James. But yeah, I don't disagree with that. The genius of socialists. They use the language of love to explain economics. That's why James won't say capitalism. Maybe. But it better be tasteful.
As a result, so every vet can't make money anymore, can't make a living, and you can actually collapse the entire market for veterinary medicine by oversaturating the market with tons of little clinics, none of which can actually generate enough revenue to stay in business and pay the people that work there. And so this is a real problem. And they said the problem was, in fact, the admissions offices. So NPR was willing to blame the admissions officers for taking every one of these poor little kids who loves puppies and kittens and wants to be a veterinarian and work with animals, take every one of them and sell them the dream. You can be a vet, blah, blah, blah. And then walk them into $400,000 to $500,000 of student debt to enter into an oversaturated job market. And the point that they really drove home was, and nobody in the college, because they want that tuition money, is telling them the truth. There's not enough animals to be taken care of. There's not enough demand. There's not enough space in the market for more veterinarians. You should consider another field. Another problem that they have is that they just try to keep you in there no matter what. So you go to school for engineering, turns out you suck at math. You probably shouldn't have went to college. You probably should have went and learned, because the reason, so one of my college roommates loved working with machines. Now he's got a great career. He ended up graduating with a degree in business, and he loves his job now, and he found something he wouldn't have otherwise. So he's a success story, but that's beside the point. He wanted to be an engineer because he liked working on tractors and trucks and cars and mechanical things. And it turns out, poor bastard couldn't do pre-calculus, couldn't get into calculus at all, just completely obliterated by calculus or pre-calc, couldn't get into the math prerequisites, couldn't get into engineering school classes. And so he bounced into a business degree, got a business degree. He's very successful and very happy with the career he got. So that's a success story. But you can just watch kids. They go for what they think they want to do, and they ping pong down until they end up in psychology or College of Education.
Well, but that,
or now one of these stupid.
But that's always been true. I went to college thinking I was going to study journalism. I went in as a journalism major, and within 2 weeks, I changed my major to general communications because I decided I didn't want to do journalism anymore. I ended up doing PR, but my degree is in communications. Like, that's not the fault of colleges. That is the fault of a society in which we say that someone is an adult at 18 years old and can make all their decisions at 18 years old, and they have to decide what they want to do for the rest of their life at 18 years old.
But humanities, navel-gazing grievance studies courses, where what was the report that just came out, which I just saw, that 90% of the kids in the school make A's in those classes or something like that. Like, yeah, of course, because it's easy. You just make stuff up constantly.
All my students are honor students. All of them come to me with, oh, I'm the top, I have a 4 something average. When I was coming up, it was 4.0. That was it. That's as high as you went. Now it's like, I have a 5.0. I have a 4.8. I have this.
Oh yeah. All these made up numbers.
These made up numbers. And they're saying, oh, I'm honors this and AP that. And we sit down to write an essay, and it is torturous. Now, maybe they're very good at math. I don't know. But I've had, let's say I have 10 students, 2 of them can write at all. And most of them have never been taught pre-writing. They've never been taught anything about the process of writing. And everything is narrative, James. Everything is narrative. They're writing stories. They're not writing an essay. They don't even, like, well, what do you mean it's not an essay? Like, so let me get this straight. You have an A in honors English, but you don't know that this is narrative and not an essay. And then we have to start with what an essay is. And I'm assigning them E.B. White, like I'm assigning them George Orwell. So it's really hard. And I actually genuinely feel bad for them because they are bright kids. They're good kids. They're nice kids. But they've just been sold a bill of goods. And now they're
all right. I want to look and see if there's anything different on Deb's channel that we should watch, because I feel like we're just going round and round in circles now. Does anyone mind if I just take a gander around? Because I think that James has been on Deb's channel in other times, and I feel like they're just not saying anything new. And I don't know. I want to look around Deb's channel and see if there's anything else to watch. Daramuth over on Rumble, to a fellow Rumbler, hope you have a good night and an even better weekend. Let's go Rumble. Thank you for the $2. I really do appreciate it. All right, let's see. Let's see if Deb has any other talks with James. The occult and new age origins of SEL. That might be a good talk. Is that the only other time that James has been on Deb's channel? Twitter suspends James Lindsay. No. Do you want to do the occult one? All right, let's do the occult one. The peanut butter beer got Carlin. Listen, man, this is amazing. It's so good. It's so fucking good. All right, let's do the occult episode. Fine. This is only a year ago, so we're obviously not going to watch the whole thing. I'm not going to be here all night watching Deb and James, but for a little while anyway. Who is this Deb person? Deb Filman is a wannabe influencer who thinks that she knows everything. And she used to be in my community when she very first got started. She was in my community, and she used to come into my community to try to steal my audience. And I thought that Deb was working on important things at the time. And so I let her do it because I was like, I want to promote everyone. And I was so naive when this was happening. And I was like, everyone needs to promote everyone else. Everyone needs to send to help everyone else, blah, blah, blah. And so Deb used to come into my community to try to steal my audience. And then Deb decided to work with 3 other people in my community to try to steal stuff that I was working on and do it themselves because they thought that they were better than me. And when I found out that they stole stuff from me, I called them out publicly for it. And I told them to fucking eat a dick. And I said many other things as well. And then Deb got really pissed at me and decided to defame me on the internet for years on end. And I don't really care because Deb tried to steal my stuff. Anyway, Deb really wants to be an influencer. And she tries so hard. She reads on Twitter like a good influencer all day, every day. And the Mills for Liberty love Deb. And James loves Deb. They all think that Deb is the bee's knees. And so you guys can watch Deb and you can figure out if that is deserved or not. No, Trendlin, no. No. You have already tortured me enough, Trendlin. I'm not watching Fresh and Fit. That is not going to happen right now. I'm still recovering from the whatever podcast. Anyway, let's see. Let's just skip into it.
Do I talk about this? How do I talk about this and not sound like I've gone completely off the deep end? Right. And, you know, should I talk about this? And to the point where I actually...
Deb is an unhinged cunt.
I'll just be a bit
Are you happy, Sandy?
Managed to stress myself into a low-grade heart condition. This was very, very... I took this very seriously. And as far as verifying and checking off the research, it's not like they make it hard. You can actually check virtually everything you probably did. In about 20 minutes, you can actually verify everything.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to think I was spending like 3-4 hours. That's how easy it was. I was like, it's in plain sight, guys.
It's not even hidden. And I just keep coming back to it. And, you know, I wanted to figure out how to approach the podcast, and I wanted to put this out. I had the concept of what I had to title the podcast.
Why does
probably
Deb look
together
like a witch?
in October. And I had no idea how to put it together. And I finally realized that what I need to do is just roll through the history backwards, offer lots of quotes, just read it directly and say, you know, this is what it says, and then ask a lot of questions.
Deb actually looks relaxed in this episode. I wonder if Deb got laid before this episode. I'll turn on caption, Spirit Matter. I apologize. Like, Deb is wearing a good lipstick. It's a weird lipstick, but it's oddly attractive. She looks relaxed. This must have been the episode that Deb filmed right after Deb's husband moved back in, because Deb's husband was going to divorce her. And Deb was crying about this on the internet for a long time. But at some point, Deb's husband moved back in. So this must be the episode after they made up, is my guess. But Deb looks like a witch.
You know, hence the title being actually a question. WTF is SEL. What in the world, will be polite, is social emotional learning? Because this is... I mean, it's straight up the occult. I mean, and I'm not saying, oh, it's the occult, like I read that. No, the author that I'm tracing it back to, named Alice Bailey, actually says in her book explicitly that you're separating students in educational contexts, so that some of them are going to be workers, and some of them are going to be mystics, and some of them are going to be occultists. And that's her words. It's all the occult. The word occult appears in her book. I don't know how many times. I probably should actually go look, but a lot. So it was very difficult to figure out what I was supposed to do with this information. And then I finally just kind of felt inspired and went for it.
Right. And I think for those who haven't yet listened to the podcast, what we should do is just do a quick overview of what you discovered, kind of like the high points, like an outline, and then get into, I had some questions. Almost all of them are devil's advocate kind of questions, because I'm anticipating things the audience might say or wonder aloud. And then you can, I have my own answers. You have yours, I'm sure. And then I even took the liberty of bringing up all the links and things so I can actually show people some of the language side by side so they can see, because first do the outline and then we'll get into the questions.
Yeah. Sure. And the answer, by the way, is 15. The answer is 15 times. The word occult appears in that book, at least without a hyphen. Sometimes it doesn't find hyphenated, line breaking things when you do a search for a term. So occult or occultism or whatever appears 15 times in the book. And this is just one of her 24 books. And so I will kind of just take you through, I will take you into the rabbit hole as I went into it. So I've been reading about social emotional learning, as you said in the introduction, for a while.
No. Thank you for the $5.
Independently and sort of simultaneously with Jennifer McWilliams. She wrote an article some time ago pointing out, is definitely in the summer, because I remember it was early in the summer, because by late summer when I did my education workshop in DC, that's come out, the 4-part critical education workshop I did, and a lot of people have seen that. I mention it in there, and I credit Jennifer McWilliams in there. And I remember looking up her source and having kept the tab open a long time to be able to cite it for that particular presentation I did. So she pointed out that social emotional learning, it's no secret, it's on all of the necessary things, it's in all the documents, came from this place called the Fetzer Institute. Fetzer. This isn't a secret. You go to the Handbook of Social Emotional Learning and Research and Practice. This is a fairly standard issue, major textbook on the subject, published in 2015 or 16. And they tell you from the get-go, and it's mentioned in there. And so it's on the Fetzer
I know that so I haven't actually been super critical of functionally how James is describing a lot of this stuff, but I will say it is actually very striking to me. And maybe this is just because he's in an interview with Deb. He can't control the questions Deb asks him, so I can't fault him for that. It is striking to me, though, that, how do I say this? Are you guys confused about the fact that James Lindsay's audience doesn't know what they're talking about? Are you guys confused as to why James Lindsay's audience does not understand the left as much as they think they do? Because listening to James talk about this to Deb, it really kind of hammers home for me why James Lindsay's audience thinks they understand what's going on, but they don't actually understand. Now, again, James is doing an interview here, so I can't fault him entirely for this, but he's not teaching. He's just he's flexing what he knows, but he's not actually teaching people. Do people see that? Now, maybe it's not his intent to teach people. Maybe James Lindsay really has just built a career off of flexing what he knows, and he knows a lot. He should be able to flex on it. I just wonder how that's actually going to accomplish anything other than, maybe the goal really is just that James wants to feel good about what James wants to feel good about, and that's all he wants to do. Maybe that really is the goal. Maybe it always was. What a shame.
Website. It's on the CASEL website. It's nobody's hiding it. CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning, and the program of SEL emerged in 94 and 95 successively from the Fetzer Institute, having conferences about education. Now, Jennifer McWilliams points out that the Fetzer Institute is a New Age spiritualism organization. And I looked into it deeply enough to confirm that, and didn't look much more deeply at the time. So here we have spirituality and education. Everybody has the sense that a lot of this stuff has a religious feel.
I'm going back to when I used to listen to James back in the day, and I'm understanding again why it took me so long to wrap my head around these things, because I mean, everything really started coming together for me, and I really do hate to be this brass tacks about it because, again, like, I think that James is very smart. I think that he is a really good teacher for the things that he teaches, at least in his in-person classes. I think his podcasts, like the ones that I listened to back in the day, I felt like I was learning, but in retrospect, in, like, thinking about it now, my greatest learnings came in this after I stopped listening to James. And I think it's because I was able to judge the information more on, like, face value rather than how James's audience is getting the information is they aren't going and reading the papers. They aren't going and listening to the left. They're getting James's interpretation of what the left is doing, which may or may not be hinged into the reality of what the left is doing. But it sounds really good. It sounds like it makes sense. And in James's brain, it does make sense. But just because it makes sense in James's brain doesn't mean it's reflective of what the left is doing. Rottweiler, even if I like the academic, more obscure approach and lingo, I agree this esoteric talk is a tangent that confuses the average person and who doesn't have the philosophical training some of us might have. I mean, and you can learn the philosophy. It's not like that hard to learn, but it's like, if your goal is to inoculate people to what's going on by teaching them about it, you actually have to teach them.
For a religious component, and maybe there's a First Amendment violation happening with what's happening in our, with woke stuff in the schools. And so I'm like, finally one day I'm like, I'm going to have to look in. It just keeps crossing my path. I'm going to look into the Fetzer Institute. I mean, I've seen they had a conference, Spirituality and Education. That's literally what it's called. They did all this they do these weird prayer retreats and all this, or meditation retreats kind of things. And so I'm like, who in the world is John Fetzer anyway? What's the Fetzer Institute? So I started looking it up. It's a real weird place. It's in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm like, okay. It's shaped like a triangle. I'm like, that's
lots of triangles with them. Yeah.
Apparently triangles everywhere throughout the building. And it turns out that John Fetzer was a radio magnate. He made a ton of money working in radio. I don't know how much. I didn't look that up. But enough to, when he created the Fetzer Institute, he was able to gift it $200 million. So a lot of initial seed money out of his own pocket to create this institute, 200 million laying around. He also was rich enough from his exploits in radio to buy and own the Detroit Tigers baseball team, for a Major League Baseball team, for a number of years, many years, actually decades, during which time they were kind of famously a terrible team, but that's beside the point. So
when you consult the Ouija board to decide,
you consult the Ouija board to decide who's going to be the pitcher. And you think we're joking?
We're not kidding, guys. That's what he did. Yes.
Well, sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he channeled the Archangel Michael and
for God. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Sometimes he did.
And he told the players to visualize,
So now James and Deb are just shitting on people with spiritual beliefs that they don't like. Is that what we're talking about? Listen, man, I would never condone use of a Ouija board, but and I'm certainly not in favor of this SEL stuff at all, regardless of what the origin of it is. But a lot of people channel the Archangel Michael. Do you guys know that you just shit on like every single Catholic? Because Archangel Michael's pretty big in that whole thing. Like, I don't condone the use of a Ouija board. Ouija boards are bad fucking ideas. But James is an atheist and Deb is a non-religious Jew who is only a Jew when it's convenient for her to be a Jew. So I'm a little confused about why they're shitting on people for having different approaches to life than they themselves have. But hey, I guess to each their own.
talk to the ball and tell it where to go into the strike zone. And like that, great. So this guy turns out manifest it. That's right. It's a secret.
Yeah, because
this guy was a new age.
That's not actually how manifesting works. But oh, now we're getting into new age. Oh, okay, here we go. Wow, I didn't realize this was actually going to piss me off. Okay.
Spirituality wacko. I mean, he's in. If it was something that sounds spiritual, he was into it. Started out as a Seventh-day Adventist, bailed out of that Christian offshoot, became a straight up occultist. Got it. It didn't matter who it was, what it was. He said that he dabbled in all of it. Some of it he liked, some of it he didn't like, but he had this huge library of quote unquote spiritual literature that's all this kind of weird new age or occult or whatever, but also going back into the esoteric religions, Hermeticism and Gnosticism. He was into this stuff, and he built the Institute to try to figure out how to have like a new global spirituality. And that right at the point when the castle stuff starts happening, the Institute took a curve right before John Fetzer died in 91, actually started to take a curve into how to bring this new age spirituality and angle into education in order to educate kids on a spiritual level instead. And among the people that are these kind of weird esotericists that John Fetzer was so into, and I say this guy believed in some crazy stuff. He believed he was reincarnated. Not just, nobody's ever just reincarnated from some dude, right? No, he was reincarnated from Thomas Jefferson. And that wasn't enough.
Oh, that's stupid.
Thomas Jefferson, in turn, so he also had been reincarnated from the Apostle Paul. So this is the kind of mind we're dealing with behind the scenes at the Fetzer Institute. And the Fetzer Institute.
Listen, I'm not going to deny that there are a lot of whack jobs who latch on to spiritual beliefs. I absolutely believe there are a lot of whack jobs who latch on to spiritual beliefs. And it sounds like this guy is one of those whack jobs that latched onto that. But I think you can talk about this without shitting on people who believe that type of stuff.
Whether it's with people like Tim Shriver or what's his name, the guy that wrote the emotional intelligence book. Goldman or
what is his name? Daniel Goleman.
Goleman, that's right, Daniel Goleman. These guys were there at the present. These are all like, they're all into like unity this and like
Daniel Goleman, really
global that, all the time, everything. Emotional intelligence.
Daniel Goleman's an
basically
asshole,
not real. It's mostly about how sophisticated your vocabulary with emotional words is, or something like that. I don't know. But anyway,
that's not what emotional intelligence is.
And the goal is to teach kids.
I'm not going to explain what emotional intelligence is now, but what James just said is not actually what emotional intelligence is. Tayton says, my kid's principal called. Him and his buddy were calling girls big. You have a first grader that's calling girls big fat vaginas? Where did they learn that language, Tayton?
Stuff. So what was it though that John Fetzer, like, who was his favorite occult theosophy esotericist that he was into? Is this woman Alice A. Bailey. And Alice Bailey, in all of her books, there are 24 of them, like we mentioned. I was mentioning, I counted occult out of the book called Education in the New Age. That's one of the 24. That's the one that I read from in the podcast. It's the only one I've read in full. I've read a little bit of a couple others of her books, but they are similarly flavored throughout. Who was this character? So Alice Bailey, I think, was kind of a fraud. She was being brought up in the so-called Theosophical Society of Helena Blavatsky, who was this occultist who was also a fraud. It's hard to talk about this without, like, it's frauds on top of frauds. Helena Blavatsky
we could talk about frauds,
briefly got in. She apparently traveled to India at some point.
Who talk about the left don't say
came back to London and created some weird Theosophical Society of,
if you're not saying capitalism when you're talking about the left
and whatever. And she wove in themes from the esoteric religions like Hermeticism and Gnosticism, but she also wove in stuff from Buddhism and Hindu religion. She's
reincarnated and speaking to us from the grave.
Yeah, exactly. I see that. And so Helena Blavatsky has this Theosophical Society. Alice Bailey.
If anyone ever spoke about Judaism like Deb is speaking about spiritualized beliefs right now, Deb would have their ass on a plate. I'm just saying. James is an aspiring Gnostic cult leader himself. Indeed he is. Indeed he is.
He's a member of it. Then Alice Bailey starts doing her own channelings and gets kicked out.
Not
because
allowed.
Now she's talking to the source spirits directly, which might turn out to lead you to contradict the guru and have the same level of authority in your irresolvable conflict here. Blavatsky had a number of other famous proteges. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood,
we can only hope, Kino.
Annie Besant, one of the leading Fabian socialists, being one, which brings another neat connection because
the Fabian socialists. That's interesting. Did you guys know that Deb is friends with a Fabian on Twitter? And I know that Deb is friends with a Fabian on Twitter because that particular Fabian is one of the people who was running smear campaigns on me, literally has Fabian in his handle. And we tried to tell Deb that the Fabian guy that she was interacting with was a socialist because Fabians are socialists. And Deb didn't seem to want to listen to that because he was defaming me, and that was all that mattered to Deb, was he was defaming me, and so it didn't matter if he was a Fabian socialist. All that mattered was he was defaming me. But James has just said that the Fabians are socialists, and Deb, the leading Fabian socialist. Huh. Deb.
Being one, which brings another neat connection because Margaret Sanger left the UK with H.G. Wells, who was a Fabian socialist as well, to come to the United States.
Another Fabian socialist.
And so Alice Bailey's in this milieu.
Deb.
I think she ends up in the U.S. anyway.
Knowing.
At some point.
She married somebody in
Foster Bailey.
Yeah.
Foster Bailey, who is a 32nd degree Freemason. By the way, Mr. John Fetzer got so interested in Freemasonry, he joined and became a 33rd degree, which is the top level, allegedly, of Freemasonry, Scottish Rite Freemason. Crazy. And so he went all the way through. If it was mystical, John Fetzer wanted to be there. But he took these books that Alice Bailey wrote, and they all contain this thing called the Great Invocation. And that was every Monday night meeting that they had for the Fetzer Institute. They went through and recited the entire Great Invocation.
Yeah, I brought it up in case we wanted to look at it. I actually
why don't we?
Grabbed it. Yeah, let's show everybody this thing that was read every single after every single, what was it, Monday night you said meeting?
They're Monday night meetings, the Great Invocation.
So there's the Great Invocation, and I think if we put ourselves to the side, it's a little easier. Yeah. Okay, and so there it is, right? From the point of light within the mind of God. Let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth from the point of love within the heart of God. Let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ, and notice the asterisks, return to earth from the center where the will of God is known. Let purpose guide the little.
Well, there's an asterisk because it's referring to Christ consciousness, but okay.
Little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. And this is the asterisk. Many religions believe in a world teacher, a coming one, knowing him under such names as the Lord Maitreya, the Imam Mahdi, the Kaika Avatar, the Bodhisattva. These terms are sometimes used in versions of the Great Invocation where people.
It's called the Christ consciousness, Deb.
When I heard
that's not a bro. Okay, listen. Multiple things can be true at once. This website looks very culty to me. And the obsession that this guy apparently had with mysticism seems culty to me. So I'm not saying that this is not a cult of some sort. In fact, I am acknowledging that I think that this is probably a cult of some sort. But there's nothing actually wrong with what Deb just read. And the fact that Deb thinks there's something wrong with it just reflects Deb's lack of understanding that there are different people in the world and that different people believe different things. Deb, this is where having a basic grounding in other forms of spiritual belief, and even, dare I say, paganism, might help you to understand what you are reading, because I'm fairly certain that neither Deb nor James actually understands what they're reading. Rottweiler, again, even if we agree for the sake of argument it's Gnosticism, how many commies will argue that will that argument deprogram? That question is a non-starter. I mean, yeah, I kind of feel the same way about it. But make one of Deb. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Don't do that. Please. I'm going to get accused of harassment if you do that. Please don't do that.
Heard this. And then I also heard you talking in the podcast about a lot of their beliefs about
what is your issue with this
has to get together and find, get to the divine plan on earth. It's always the group, and the group will know, and the enlightened ones and all this.
The masters know the plan on earth. That's what
the
it
masters,
says in the invitation.
And I kept thinking, these people,
James, in different spiritual belief systems, beings, people that have achieved Christ consciousness are called ascended masters. That's what they're called. There are many ascended masters. It's not just one. There are many of them. So using the term master isn't a relation to some sort of power system. That's not what it is. This is, James should not fucking be talking about spirituality. I'm sorry. Atheists should not be allowed to talk about spirituality.
People, whoever they are, they believe this stuff, are not only making of themselves gods. I mean, they're basically saying, yes, we know what's best for everybody, the whole planet.
No, that's Deb. That's not what making yourself a god means. There are a lot of people in this world who believe that they are the gods of their own experience. Yes, they're making themselves God. I am the god of my own fucking experience. You are the god of your own experience. James is the god of his own experience. Everyone in the chat is the god of their own experience because, Deb, some people believe that God resides within. It does not mean that you believe you are the god of everyone else. It means you believe you are the god of you.
All of you. But as appealing as it might be to some people, I can imagine there's some people that go, wouldn't that be lovely? Light and love and everything.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
No war, it's all peaceful. But they forget one key thing. Someone decides, and it isn't you. Like,
that's right.
These masters,
that's not the point.
These people, whoever
that's
they are,
literally not the point.
Somehow know. They just have this knowledge, and you talk about that in the podcast.
That's right. So they're
it's not magical knowledge that they're the only ones that have access to. Everyone has access to the knowledge, Deb. Ascended masters are ascended masters because they've achieved a mastery of the knowledge that you have access to, that James has access to, that every single person has access to. That's why they're ascended masters. No, they have definitely never read A Course in Miracles.
The elites, they're the masters, they're the gurus, they're the ones that channel the archangel. Or
see, James doesn't understand this either. James thinks that by saying they're an ascended master, that they have some access to some secret knowledge. Every single person has access to that. Every single person has access to channeling Archangel Michael if they want to. If I'm walking down a street at night and I'm in a city I don't know, I absolutely channel Archangel Michael and I say, Archangel Michael, protect me from anyone that would do me harm. I channel angels to get fucking upgrades on planes and in hotels. You can ask them for that shit. I've channeled angels to help me find my car keys. I've channeled angels to help me fix a problem. And people might think that's crazy, But if I'm the god of my own experience, I can channel whatever fucking energy I want to fix whatever problem I have at any given time. And I've gotten a lot of free upgrades on flights and hotels in my day that I got for no good reason, other than I happened to be at a certain place on the list where I really had no business being. But this is the problem with James's Gnosticism argument, because James's argument relies on the idea that these mysterious masters have access to some mysterious knowledge that they're the only ones that have access to. That's not what this is. And anyone who has ever actually practiced this type of spirituality knows that's not what this is, but James is an atheist and he doesn't know that. What is an example of a Gnostic? I'm not familiar with any of it. Well, what they're talking about right now isn't Gnosticism. Gnosticism means like hidden knowledge. What they're talking about right now isn't Gnosticism. You can't. So I can ask angels to go and visit James and to plant ideas in James's head that may or may not manifest into reality, but I can't control other people. And really, you shouldn't fuck around with the energy of other people, if I'm honest about it. Like, that will always come back to bite you. You should focus on yourself and what you want, and like make yourself open to like whatever possibilities and whatever ways that might manifest itself. But like, you really shouldn't do that kind of stuff with others.
Speak to God's mind directly. They're the Gnostics. They are Gnostics. They believe that they've had a special encounter with the deity.
This isn't Gnosticism.
Special knowledge about the true nature of reality that's been hidden from everybody who hasn't gone through their esoteric rites. Those are the people that are going to become the masters. For setting the stage for the world. They're the ones that know the plan and thus want to bring it into fruition. What? The plan for humanity and the world. And so it's their job to complete humanity and the world in that regard. If we get back into the esoteric religions, if we go back into, say, the idea of Hermeticism, the idea is that what the fall of man represents, falling away from God in Hermeticism, is that there is distinction between us and God. Humans and God are no longer co-continuous. We're now separated. And so there's a distinction between the divine and the mundane, or the godly and the human.
That's not what that is, James.
This distinction is to be obliterated. So they also have...
That's not what that means. God fucking damn it. I didn't realize this was going to make me this mad. That's not what that means, James. Most people are separated from God because they want to be separated from God because they do not see themselves as divine. I don't even know why this has nothing to do with what, like, socialism or anything like that, but like, James himself believes that he is separated from God. James is an atheist. James believes that he is separated from God because he doesn't believe God exists, which is fine. He's allowed to believe that. But I don't believe James is separated from God. I believe we all have connection to God because we are all the gods of our own experience. We all come from God. If you want to access God, you have the ability to do that. If James wanted to access God, James has the ability to do that. But because James is the God of his own experience, he also has the ability to separate himself from God. If James wants to create an experience in which he does not believe that he is connected to the divine, even if he could be connected to the divine if he wanted to, even if James is surrounded by angels that he doesn't know about, that are constantly looking out for him, constantly protecting him, he still has the free will to create whatever experience he wants, and that experience is he is an atheist that does not believe in the divine. That's fine. But James is the one creating that experience because James is the God of his own experience. That's what separation means. It means that you are making the choice to be separate from the divine. And for a lot of people, what their purpose in life is, what their journey in life is realizing that they were never really separated from the divine in the first place. Realizing that we are all part of the collective consciousness, which is not socialist collective, it's a different thing. Realizing that I'm you, you're me, we are all connected. Realizing that you have access to whatever knowledge you want and whatever you need at whatever time you want. That's what that means. It's not some sort of mystical, magical, like secret that only the ascended masters have access to. Jesus was an ascended master because Jesus knew he was connected to the divine. That's why.
Of a set of principles, and one of their key principles, the first of their key principles in Hermeticism, is the principle of mind, or the mental principle, which is that everything is mental. And so what you're supposed to do to return to the source and become God and complete the plan is that we obliterate all differences between our minds. So we all come to think exactly the same way.
That's not what that means.
The totalitarianism and the totalism that we see in movements like Nazism and communism, Maoism, etc., as variants on these things.
I knew James's descent into what he believes is Gnosticism was insane. I knew that just from his tweets. I was like, James doesn't understand this. Fine. I had no idea that it had gone this insane, though. Like, for people who understand what these spiritual beliefs mean, like, James is completely off the fucking rails, right? I'm not just interpreting this the way I am because he's annoying me right now about other things. Like, James is completely off the fucking rails.
Things all starts to make sense. What we're dealing with, and this is crazy that we're looking at it through this weird theosophical thing. What we're dealing with here is a gigantic world religion that nobody talks about, that has a current running through all of Western history.
There and this is just Western.
This is 1920 some odd when this book was written, or 1930 some odd. The Great Invocation was at least by the 20s for Alice Bailey. I don't know if she stole it from Blavatsky or not. I haven't read much of Blavatsky yet. She's got a couple of books. I read a little bit of one of them, which is called The Secret Teaching or something like that. And I just kind of checked out. I was like, I can't read more of this crap right now. I can only handle so much crazy. I know everybody thinks I seem to have a bottomless appetite for crazy, but it turns out I don't.
I can relate to that. But the thing that and they even use the words as the group thinks.
That's right.
As the group thinks, like that.
Which is what you see in Ferrari, which is where he says that the I is fulfilled in the we. I think because we think. It's the exact same mentality, and it's the exact same thing. So I'm reading all this and I'm like, oh no. And then it gets worse. I haven't gotten into the details that made me decide I had to do something with this. You're like, oh, that book's real weird. Well, I read the book and that's really, really weird. But let's just talk about some more details. We talked about John Fetzer channeling with the psychic named Jim Gordon, the Archangel Michael, to get advice. We talk about him doing other seances and channelings. We talk about him using his Ouija board to make business decisions. All true. We talk about him talking to the baseball. We talk about him, believing he's reincarnated from the Apostle Paul and Thomas Jefferson. Okay, this is this character. Filling
always
his library
the famous people. It's not the janitor. He's
it's never some normal dude. It's Thomas Jefferson, of anybody you could pick. And so what about Alice Bailey? So Alice Bailey has these crackpot ideas. She gets chased out of Theosophical Society, comes to the US at some point in this. But in 1922, she decides she wants to publish her ravings. I mean, what she calls her writings, these books that she's writing at the time about all of her crazy ideas. And she creates a publishing company to do so. This is easily verified. The original name, we were just on their website, by the way. So that's a real publishing company. But the original name for their publishing company was the Lucifer Publishing Company. Like, okay, that's a little crazy name. And in a couple of years, in 1924, Alice Bailey realized that wasn't a good name for the publishing company for some reason. And renamed it the Lucius Publishing Company. And the Lucius, Lucis, as you saw on the website up in the corner with a weird symbol, atheist. If you saw it. And this got reincorporated as a trust, because if you read her books, she thanks repeatedly people like the Rockefellers and the Fords for giving her lots of money. And so the Lucis Trust becomes the thing. And
apparently she manifested the Rockefellers and the Fords giving her a lot of money.
That was originally called the Lucifer Publishing Company. And then, you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll look into it. Maybe we should go check out their office. Where is it? And you click on the contact link on their website and they tell you their address. And you're like, how can this be? And contact us at somewhere.
They've got the contact somewhere about the Lucis Trust.
It's real easy to find on the phone. It's in their little drop down.
Yeah, on the drop down, it is really easy to find.
It's real easy to find on the phone.
Keep in touch. But I saw it myself. It is literally at the UN.
It is at 866 United Nations
Plaza. It's at
Plaza.
the UN. That's fucking
originally
crazy.
Addressed 666 United Nations Plaza, but
and
they changed that.
They have a whole section.
Oh, holy shit! That's fucking crazy.
And I also brought up.
Yeah, I think that this is a cult. I'm not gonna lie. Like James's misinterpretations of basic spiritual beliefs aside, this is a fucking cult. What they're looking at.
To show people. They have a recent blog. Wait a minute. That one is also, hang on a second. Where they're talking about, in search of a new culture, perspectives on human flourishing. I brought this up because I imagine people watching and listening to you might start thinking like, okay, well, that's really creepy and weird, James. And that, Fetzer, we get that, this guy Fetzer was enamored of her and into her stuff. But these people lived a long time ago and SEL's happening now and so forth. But so, I mean, like, how do you think they're connected? And so I started scrolling through this and I started looking at, first of all, the things that they're saying about education, like here, where they say the new group of world servers is presently expanding in size. Servers are basically who they refer to like their disciples. They're people at their little clubs and their groups. And influence, size and influence, they're currently is increasing with a multitude of creative ideas to meet today's challenges. And there are many signs that a realignment with the divine plan is currently taking place in the many initiatives that are exploring how a new type of culture can take root around the world. Nowhere is this more important than in the philosophy of education.
UNESCO.
For the way we educate influences thought, perception, desire, and action in all areas of human enterprise. Of real significance here is UNESCO's worldwide initiative, Futures of Education, Learning to Become.
That is so annoying.
Learning to become is Marxist, by the way. That's Hegelian or Hermetic magic. That's becoming. Things are supposed to become what they were meant to be. The divine plan is supposed to get back on track so things can become what they're meant to be. Humans are to be made to become who they were meant to be. Trans people are never actually trans. They're becoming trans eternally. Right. So just to point out that magic word becoming, that's a trigger word if you're paying attention to these things.
Exactly. And this is the new goal. This new goal for education has been described.
Has James ever done any sort of podcast about all of the trigger words and their definitions? I know he has that dictionary on his website, but I personally find that dictionary to be really unusable because if I go to a term in that dictionary, it's like a 20-page paper on something that I literally just wanted like a short descriptor for like what this is and where I can find more information. Has James ever done any sort like I'm serious though, like yo, we got a good one. We're watching the launch of the Canadian Revolutionary Communist Party tomorrow. It's like 2.5 hours long. All right, we're gonna listen to this a little bit more, but I'm kind of like done. I'm over it.
Described as global citizenship. Wait, have we heard that from Castle? Have we heard that in SEL? Like constantly. Global citizenship for human flourishing, which they also talk about in SEL. Mm-hmm. And the spirit of this ideal permeates the landmark report that has now been published, Reimagining Our Futures Together, a New Social Contract for Education. The report served as the key reference document for the recent United Nations Summit, Transforming Education, which was here. This is where they talk about that. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to, as we're talking about
take a picture, Jane. Send quickly, me a picture,
connect
please.
The dots for people that, yes, this woman is was saying all these things back in, the 1920s, the 1930s.
Okay, so I've heard enough. I've heard enough. But does he actually say the definition, or does he pontificate for 15 minutes about all the stories around the definition? Like, does he actually say it, or is it some sort of thing where he goes around and around in a circle and maybe zigzags here and there? So you see why they mix up the movements. Yeah, this is completely mixed up with who's actually running education. And I acknowledge the SEL stuff. The SEL stuff I don't think is coming from the radical revolutionary left. We've never talked about the SEL stuff in terms of it coming from the radical revolutionary left. Now it's fucking with kids and pushing them into gender ideology, but I agree that the SEL stuff is coming from here. Awesome, Trendolin. But yeah, we're going to go back to socialism now. James can pontificate about Gnostics and spirituality that he doesn't understand to his heart's content. We learned nothing today. We learned nothing today. Does James have a definition of has James ever done a bullet podcast about capitalism? No, we're not going to watch socialism tonight. I'm going to take a break tonight. All right. Thank you for allowing me to get some feelings out on the internet. I don't feel like this was a productive stream. I feel like I listened to James and Deb pontificating about things that I didn't really care about for a while, but has James defined Western values? That's a good question for James. Whatever. I at least have some good beer. I'm going to finish my beer and I'm going to hang out and I'm going to get some new merch up in the store. Guys, as a reminder, just for a couple more hours, because I was a little bit of a slacker. Well, I wasn't a slacker. I was talking about the communist revolution on the internet. And so I didn't have time today to swap out some of the merch in the merch store. So for a couple more hours, like 4 more hours, you can get the 4 goals of the woke left design for 25% off. It's really going away tonight, though. It was supposed to go away last night and I had to do something else, but it's really going away tonight. You can also, for the moment, still get the Unwoke wiki design for February, although the March design will be going up tonight. So get it in while you can, guys. We'll be back at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday, where we will actually be productive for once. I'm going to go get drunk now. Have a great rest of your Friday. We'll see you soon. Bye.